Insurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Hey, I'm Yael Osowski.
And I'm David Clement.
We're the host of Consumer Choice Radio, broadcasting every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Consumer Choice Radio is a weekly conversation featuring the latest news, interviews, and expert analysis that covers consumer topics from around the world.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. In Waukesha, Wisconsin last night, a vigil for those killed when an SUV driver plowed through a Christmas parade on Sunday. Police Chief Dan Thompson.
Now is the time to grieve and mourn. I want to personally thank you all for being here. Unity and community is showing love to one another.
And police are preparing 5 charges of intentional homicide now against the driver, 39-year-old Darrell Brooks Jr. of Milwaukee. In Brunswick, Georgia, the trial of 3 white men charged with killing Ahmaud Arbery could soon be in the hands of the jury. Prosecutors are seeking murder convictions in the death of the 25-year-old black man on day 2 of their closing arguments. President Biden celebrated the holiday with U.S. troops at Fort Bragg. Here's White House correspondent Greg Clugston.
Kicking off Thanksgiving week, the President and First Lady spread some holiday cheer here in North Carolina. Inside a large hangar, they thanked the troops and their families for their service to the country. Then the first couple donned navy blue aprons with the presidential seal and served mashed potatoes and stuffing in the buffet line. Fort Bragg is home to the Army's 18th Airborne Corps and the Army's Special Operations Command.
That is White House correspondent Greg Clugston reporting. At least 46 people are dead following a horrific bus crash in southeastern Europe.
Bulgarian officials say the bus crashed early Tuesday. 7 people underwent treatment at local hospitals, with children among the victims. The bus was registered in northern Macedonia. A Bulgarian news agency says representatives from Macedonia's embassy visited a hospital where some of the victims got treatment.
That is correspondent Andrew Stewart reporting. Shares opened lower in Europe after a mixed session in Asia as countries impose lockdowns and other restrictions to fight the COVID-19 flare-ups going on there. On Wall Street, Dow futures are up 11 points. More of these stories at townhall.com.
First, we decide where we want to go. Then we need to know the best way to get there. Hi, my name's Adam Barada. I'm the owner of Advantage Gold. We're the highest-rated precious metals firm in the country. We teach people how to own physical gold and silver. Now, we've won the Best of TrustLink Award 4 years in a row because we educate our clients on how to buy gold and silver the right way. We don't pay celebrity spokespeople millions of dollars. We'd rather pass that value on to you. Call 800-900-8000 and speak with one of our experts. We'll send you a free gold kit along with my latest #1 national best-selling book, The Great Devaluation. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000. Get the best information, the best process, the best service, the best value. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000.
If you're planning on going on vacation in Hawaii, double-check your sunscreen.
The state's second-largest island, Maui, voted to ban non-mineral skin protectants that contain ingredients found to kill corals. Island officials say the chemicals first identified in 2015 cause bleaching, which in turn causes the corals to turn white and die. Instead, officials want sunbathers to use mineral-based products. A bill passed this last week recognizes the sunscreens threaten the health of the water, the reefs, and marine life, and it's scheduled to be signed into law October 1st next year. Rhonda Rockstra reporting.
In Hawaii, a homeless man in a mental hospital for 2 years is suing the state in a case of mistaken identity. Joshua Spiestersbach says he explained to police he was not the man wanted on a warrant they were serving. He wound up in the Hawaii State Hospital. Spiestersbach says while there, he was forced to take psychiatric drugs. Breaking news and analysis at townhall.com. The FAA is cracking down on unmanageable air passengers. Here's correspondent Kid Lorman.
Belligerent and unruly airline passengers can plan on even more hefty fines in the future. The Federal Aviation Administration has proposed over $160,000 in fines against 8 airline passengers from incidents which involved alcohol. The FAA assessed one man $40,000 and says it may levy even higher fines in the future. Ken Lorman reporting.
The price of holding a traditional Thanksgiving feast is on the rise, along with other things. The American Farm Bureau estimates a Thanksgiving feast for 10, complete with sweet potatoes, rolls, a vegetable tray, and a pie with whipped cream, will cost $53.31 this year. That's up 14% compared to a year ago. Before this year, the annual cost estimated had been falling ever since 2015. You'll find more of these stories at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Bob Agnew.
Please stand by.
We now take you live to the Institute of Rational Thought for a special broadcast. Hard-hitting interviews and relevant information to make your day. It's Chad Adams.
Good day. Your happy and humble host here. The Big Talker FM, Chad Adams Show. Kevin Groves making it all sound like I know what I'm doing. Yes, he has these neural implants. We hook them up. Makes me sound, relatively bright. And then for the rest of the day, I babble on like, Rashida Tlaib or something. It's remarkable. That Star Trekian technology that allows me to be erudite on the air for a couple of hours and entertain and try to be remotely interesting to you. But we're glad to have you. A lot going on. It's a strange time. Of course, may you live in interesting times, as someone much wiser than myself said. And this is funny because in my background, not that it's that important, but it's relative because I find it interesting. And it is that I actually studied for a long time in creative writing, professional writing. That was my background. That was my original training. I started out in pre-med and then, chasing a girl, I'm sure it ends up getting into creative and professional writing. Because in college, you may be bright, but you're not wise. So my grandfather said it's like climbing Fool's Hill. So in that, I've always been a huge fan of reading, massive consumer of written words, and literature is a great reflection. Great literature is a reflection of us. Why Shakespeare stands the test of time, even though it's written in iambic pentameter, which most people find extremely archaic, boring, and difficult to understand. It's the great psychology of Shakespeare. We can connect to it even hundreds of years later. The love stories, the tragedies, these things keep repeating themselves in history. You find, the awkwardness of a Richard III, this fall, oh no, I don't want to be leader, this evil rise to power and fall. You find that the inexorable draw of love and comedy in The Taming of the Shrew. You find in the period of Shakespeare's life where there's these comedies and there's all these tragedies, and they stand the test of time. If you ever get a chance to go back as you get older and look at those, if you can read them or at least get a way to interpret them, they're phenomenal reflections of human endeavor. Moby Dick stands the test of time. How many people do you know that are just obsessed with some moment in life and they can never quite, they're just the obsession with it, and you see it and you recognize it, and they have their own great white whale that they're trying to slay. That somehow life will be complete and just if they can just slay their whatever their white whale is. And Melville's Moby Dick stands the test of time. How many times have we seen when you see a Nathaniel Hawthorne in The Scarlet Letter, and you see these people, the names are no accident. Roger Chillingsworth, what a great name. He's like kind of this dark character there. And Hester Prynne, a name, prim and proper, but the way she is a victim in many ways. She commits an act, but the person she commits the act with is ridden with guilt to the point that he's killing himself with guilt. How many people do that these days? They're just so racked with guilt, they never can get past what they've done in society. And then you get into the romantics and the realists and the naturalists, and I can bore you all day. But if it's Jack London's Call of the Wild, these great books about kind of being American, Mark Twain's writings about being American, Henry Faulkner, Spotted Horses. These are great writers and pieces of work that reflect the uniqueness of being American. But you get into some others, and there's forms of literature that are reflective, and I have a point, believe it or not. What the hell's Chad talking about? If you were to study romantics, realist, and naturalist, then I'm going to give you the 2-second version of each of these. Otherwise, you could write PhDs on all areas of these. Essentially, the realist if you read realistic literature, the character starts off at a certain point, the protagonist, and they never really accomplish anything. To me, it's one of the most boring forms of literature. But the character goes through, but they never go anywhere. They're never better off. Now, in Romanticism, that's the Edgar Allan Poe stuff. If you read stuff like Poe, the characters had a point in time where things were good, and the character can never, even the Raven, they never can get back to that. It's called restoring the Golden Bowl. They can never get back to this point. The rise and fall of the House of Usher. You can't get back to this magical place in their life, or at least where they perceived it. You find Democrats doing this with Camelot. You find them, they have this romantic attachment to the Kennedy years as if something was golden and magical about that. Camelot, if only they could get there. But Kennedy didn't capture the progressive movement. He didn't. He stood up to Cuba, a dictator, threatened nuclear war to do so. Stranded a bunch of people in the Bay of Pigs. But it was not golden. Young, charismatic president, yes, with so much promise, taken out in his prime. But there was no restoring the Golden Bowl there. I'm saying all this to get to the form of literature where we find ourselves with Democrats now, and that is naturalism. Naturalism, if you ever read Erskine Caldwell's Tobacco Road, the entirety, and I sadly found naturalism to be comical. It's not comical. It's absolutely not comical. But I was young. And I just, I'm reading it knowing it's a work of fiction. But the characters in something like McTeague or Erskine Caldwell's Tobacco Road is just a great piece of literature because the characters start out in not so great a place. They don't. Their version of reality, their worldview, driven largely by ignorance, and it goes downhill. I mean, the level of poverty at the beginning of Tobacco Road is sad when the father has to steal a bag of turnips, run off in the wood, and start eating it as if they're the greatest thing in the world. Raw turnips. That's a good day for them. And during the course of this epic, it's not even a long read, they only go down. The characters, the entire Lester family, it's this tragic downhill slide. It's not going to end well. There's nothing about it that's going to end well. It's downhill. And in naturalism, that's the trait. Characters start out in either a moderate place or not so good place, not politically, but just reality, and they go downhill. And that's where we find Democrats today, this progressive view of society. And that's why literature is so germane to the subject matter today or any time in history. But you can see it. You see that the mistakes that people repeat, and they keep expecting a different result. The Lesters continue to believe that if they got this car, they're going to drive into town, it's going to get better. Good times are right around the corner. And progressives never quite get that. They have the same viewpoint as the Lesters, except instead of, they think that if I just enact this policy, things are going to get better. Things are going to be better. They see the world in a very narrow field where there aren't bad. The only bad people really are conservatives. Criminals aren't that bad. They're just mentally challenged people that were treated badly by the system, or because of the color of their skin, or because of their culture, or because of their gender, or because it's the perpetual view of victimhood that everyone's a victim except conservatives, who are just bad people. And maybe white Christian men, yeah. White Christian women second. Straight white Christian men. Has to be straight white, because you have to have these denominators to divide us. Because if we put everybody in different silos, then we can turn the silos against each other and create this perpetual angst and animosity. It's a very naturalistic, nihilistic way of looking at things. Yeah, really heavy for a 7:15 in the morning discussion, where I'm supposed to have all this optimism. And I have optimism about people because in spite of it all, if you read literature long enough, you find that though literature reflects where we are in society, it also reflects the magnificent way in which we, as a species, can overcome tremendous obstacles. Though I love those types of literature, I also love these sweeping, I love sci-fi, I love historic pieces, I love it all. And what you find in literature is this great body, this great optimism that though we can portray, you can look at something like Blade Runner, which is, this sci-fi movie, very dark, dystopian reality. If you read Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, if you read, the 1984, if you read The Atlas Shrugged, if you read Animal Farm, if you read these dystopian, futuristic things, they're warnings. They're actually warnings. All of them are these. They may be reflections. 1984, a great reflection of, Germany and World War II. There's aspects of history that are thrown into it. But the concept of Big Brother is germane today. It's more so today than at any point in time. And the only thing that Atlas Shrugged really missed, Ayn Rand's classic piece, it's tremendous, huge, giant, it's never been worked into a movie the way it should be, is that she thought we would be running on trains. She thought the whole world would be trains, and trains would be the big deal. Not with respect to supply chains, but with respect to transportation and government involvement. But everything else, she was right about the myriad of government agencies, the massive chasm of bureaucracy that just consumes everything. And you see this at work today, the complexity, the tribalism. You see all of this. You saw it play out in the Rittenhouse trial. The Rittenhouse trial, I watched Tucker's interview last night with Kyle Rittenhouse. And look, after what that kid's been through, he's 10 years wiser for having gone through what he went through. Yeah, he discredited Lynn Wood completely. For those of you who are Lynn Wood fans remotely out there, he's completely discredited Lynn Wood. I believe it. The way they kept him in jail for 87 days, the way they didn't want him home, he could have bonded out and been with family. It was pretty high bond relative to the Wisconsin massacre that happened this past weekend. And that guy was out on bail for a low bail for a domestic violence charge. He literally tried to run over his wife or girlfriend with the same vehicle he ran through the parade with. It was out on bond. But anyway, in that interview, he's obviously been through a lot, and he has a clarity of the world that a lot of 18-year-olds don't have. Trial by fire, as it were. He has a reflection about the way the media tried to create a narrative that just wasn't true. Wasn't true about him. And the players that use this to their advantage. Prosecutorial misconduct, overreach. And his warning to the rest of us was, if they can do it to me, they can do it to you. His warning was also with respect to the media. If they can do it to me, they can certainly do it to you. Everything they did. And we're going to play some of that coming up. I'm going to take a break here. I want to play a little bit of that because it colors the rest of the show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're all looking for that special gift. Lines are long, traffic is frustrating, supply chains in the news. Just take a deep breath. If you're anywhere near Oak Island, come by Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive. Avoid the traffic, the lines, the frustration, and get that extraordinary and special gift. From high-end diamond rings to Larimar, from necklaces to bracelets, watches, and unique jewelry. And you also get one-on-one service with their experienced staff. Great prices now, just in time for the holidays. Come by and check out Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
As Wilmington's leader in restorative and regenerative medicine, the Frank Institute specializes in health optimization. Simply put, we use in-depth evaluations and lab testing to determine the best treatments for each patient. So whether you're suffering from an unseen hormonal imbalance or a simple vitamin deficiency, the Frank Institute is ready to get you back to better living. Call us at 910-679-8534 or fill out our symptom survey online at frankinstitute.com. Because at the Frank Institute, you live, we help.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a signal fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
So, just framing reference. You know, some great quotes from Tobacco Road. Just really good one. Now, there's always a well-developed plan in Jeter's mind for the things he intended doing, but somehow he never got around to doing them. One day led to the next, and it was much more easy to say he would wait until tomorrow. When the day arrived, he invariably postponed action until a more convenient time. Things had been going along in that easy way for almost a lifetime now. It's pretty much Joe Biden's life. He had been in office for a lifetime. The only significant legislation he was a part of in 40-some-odd years, 50 years almost now, was the one piece that the left hates him the most for, which had to do with keeping people incarcerated, putting young African-American men in jail. The bad form of prison reform. Now, the Kyle Rittenhouse, I want to get to this because it's germane. So much of this, I'm going to only play 1 minute of this, but it's about President Biden. President Biden, while a private citizen, worth mentioning, called him a white supremacist. Now, this is indicative of what the entire news media rushed to do. Now, Kyle Rittenhouse isn't. There's nothing in his background to suggest he was. There's not a single social media post that would indicate he is. There's no group affiliations in which he was a part of. He actually was there, he went to a high school to think about what he could do to help out, didn't cross state lines. His victims weren't black. In fact, one of his victims was a pedophile that also made incendiary racial slurs the entire evening, threatened to kill several people throughout the evening, but never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And isn't it amazing that the president, it shows you who is informing the president? Where does he get his information from? Who's giving him information? For the president of the United States to weigh in a televised commercial and speech saying that he's a white supremacist is just detached from reality, which unfortunately many of us feel this particular puppeted president kind of is. And the fact that nobody on the left is calling this out, it should scare the hell out of all of us. They know it's not true. Governor Cooper knows it's not true. Every Democrat in office today in North Carolina knows it's not true. Do you hear them saying, look, he isn't? There's no evidence to indicate he's a white supremacist. Do you hear Deb Butler saying that? Do you hear Julia Bozeman saying that? Do you hear that? And that's at the local level. Do you hear anyone at the state saying this? Do you hear our Governor Cooper saying, you know what, justice worked? Is there any reassurance that they believe justice worked? Remember, Governor Cooper essentially excused people burning businesses and destroying businesses there on Fayetteville Street in Raleigh, in downtown Raleigh. Not really condemning the riots in Fayetteville, in Greensboro. And North Carolina has a history of this, by the way. It wasn't even the Rodney King trial. People forget after the Rodney King verdict that a lot of cars were destroyed and riots happened in North Carolina. And it's funny that the difference between protests and riots, in my mind, is if you want to protest, that's great. Do it in daylight. Do it. Nothing good happens at midnight. There is no, you people on the left that think that these are protests that are happening after dark. You have chewing gum for brains. You really lack the intellect. If you really believe that, you need to take a hard look at your life. You wouldn't want your teenager, your kids, being at a protest with incendiary devices and people's businesses being destroyed. Anyway, this is Rittenhouse. This is Tucker asked him about Biden's comment. Here's what he has to say.
What did you make of the President of the United States calling you a white supremacist?
Mr. President, if I could say one thing to you, I would urge you to go back and watch the trial and understand the facts before you make a statement.
That's not a small thing to be called that.
No, it's actual malice, defaming my character for him to say something like that.
I mean, why do you think, and it's not simply Biden who said that, it's a lot of people on television have said that, dozens of people have said that. I'm sorry to tell you in case you haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's actually quite hysterical how nobody can go back and look at the facts of the case. He crossed state lines, false. He's a white supremacist, false. None of that is true. And the lies that they can just get away with spreading is just sickening, and it's a disgrace to this country.
Sickening. It's absolutely true. This kid is going to, he's the Nicholas Sandman of 2021. This kid, if he has the right team, is going to go after the media. He can sue Joe Biden, because Joe Biden said that as a private citizen, by the way, defamed him publicly with malice. I mean, went after his character. It is an unbelievable stretch that if he doesn't go, I would be shocked, but I think this kid may own a couple news agencies when it's all done. Nicholas Sandman is getting it at a time when those MSNBC and CNN have become full-blown assault vehicles for the right. They aren't even interested in any kind of discussion or debate. It is simply propaganda of the worst, hate-filled, divisive times. And I'm glad that people on the right are finally pushing back. If you get called these incendiary names, it's time to not take it. It's one of the most. It used to be effective. I don't think it's as effective. And what the left doesn't realize or doesn't seem to care is if you overuse a certain phrase, you diminish how disgusting it really is in some way. You diminish it by cheapening it and being called a racist, a homophobe, whatever. These phrases, these are actual vehicles of hate that the left does to diminish having an intellectual discussion. If they can reduce the discussion to that level of animus, it's no longer a debate about the original issue. You know, if they make it so that you're hate the environment, or they diminish your ability to actually discuss actual sand policy or actual environmental policy, because they've already determined that you're a cretin, you're a roach, you need to be abolished. They do that with race, they diminish you. If they do that with homophobic slurs, they diminish you. And I hope that Rittenhouse does fight back. We're gonna take a break here in a minute. The Rashida Tlaib one, by the way, we talked about characters in literature, but these are characters in real life. And the progressives, to have this mindset, there is a large school of thought on the left that there aren't really bad people, well, other than conservatives, that ought to be in jail. And Rashida Tlaib is part of a group of folks that wants to do away with prisoners in the next 10 years. Free them all of them in federal prisons. No bad people, it's just bad prison sentences. And it's a complete and utter repudiation of the judicial system and the crime and punishment system, and it's their worldview that everyone else is wrong. And that's the problem with the political left, is everyone else is wrong. The Rittenhouse jurors, they just got it wrong. You could have seen, and most of the people who saw the Rittenhouse trial, I don't know anyone who saw it that was able to make those silly comments. Colin Kaepernick is no hero. He's a coward. Colin Kaepernick's an absolute coward. He's made money by being a race peddler. He's made money by calling everyone a white supremacist. He's still Nike's spokesman. Child labor, slave labor, being used to make a product that he's pimping out there. Colin Kaepernick, it's just a lot of these people are shadows of real people. They've got a bunch of people whispering in their ear, telling them they're wonderful and they're great and they're fantastic. They can't possibly do any wrong. And it's detrimental to society. Now, much more to go as we go through the day. And some things I need to talk about, big announcements we need to get to. I will try to get to, and the newest group of critters that have joined the sentient beings, according to the Brits. We'll talk about that. So much more to go. Stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Donna Gregory with WWAY News. Investigators still looking into the cause of that weekend fire on Bald Head Island that destroyed at least 4 houses. The fire destroying several buildings near Lighthouse Landing, spreading quickly due to strong winds. Safety personnel responded from 8 surrounding towns, and the flames were contained around 5 hours after the fire began. More information on the weekend fire is expected to be released within the next few days. The state's Division of Marine Fisheries scheduling public hearings for shellfish lease proposals in New Hanover and Pender counties. In New Hanover, a virtual hearing scheduled January 5th to discuss an application for a bottom lease near Middle Sound in the Intercoastal Waterway. And then on January 13th, they'll focus on applications in Pender County, including a shellfish bottom and water column lease in seaside areas near Topsail Sound and leases in Banks Channel and near Green Channel. With Christmas 32 days away, Jimmy's in Wrightsville Beach is kicking off its annual holiday bike drive. The bar always gets a lot of donations and this year hopes to collect more than 1,000 bikes for children in need. You can drop off a brand new bike before December 18th at Jimmy's. You can also send a bike online to the bar, or you can Venmo a donation. More details on our website, wwaytv3.com. And Bladen County Schools saying thank you to staff, one coffee at a time. The new superintendent had the district contract with Barefoot Brew to serve free coffees and smoothies at schools from the shop's mobile cart. Over the next 3 weeks, the cart will be at 15 locations. Each employee will get a beverage between 7:45 and 9 a.m. For more on these stories and more, head over to wwaytv3.com. I'm Donna Gregory. Have a great day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for a taste of winter on this Tuesday. We are going to see a good deal of sunshine across the Cape here, but our temperatures today really going to struggle to get into the low 50s. And with those north winds, anywhere between 10 to 15 miles per hour, really going to make those conditions feel like the low to middle 40s for most of the day today. And then tonight, we are turning quite cold with freeze warnings in effect for a few neighborhoods as our temperatures dip down to the upper 20s and the low 30s. Get your full forecast from WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
Government has become too big, too overtaxing, and is constantly overregulating every aspect of your life.
If you agree with that, tune in to Consumer Choice Radio every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM. With me, Yael Osowski.
And me, David Clement. For an hour, you'll get expert analysis on what the government is sinking its teeth into next, and how you, as a consumer, can push back.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. Tune in Thursdays from 6 to 7 p.m. for Objection to the Form, covering civil litigation, real estate issues, and intellectual property. That's Objection to the Form, Thursdays 6 to 7 p.m. right here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
So, jumping right into the racial wheelhouse that has become our nation, we're far less racist than we've ever been, probably in the history of our country. I mean, in many ways, from a practical standpoint, from an observational standpoint, from the reality of what's going on standpoint, the people that want to frame it this way, there aren't these systemic issues. Comparing today to 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, is now it's this overkill of seeing everything through a tribal lens. Like even the Ahmaud Arbery case, it is in all likelihood that one's it's being covered. Justice will be served. It's a sad situation. So you got Travis McMichael, 35 years of age. His father, Greg McMichael, 65. William Roddy Bryan are on trial for murder, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment for the slaying of Arbery in Santella Shores outside of Brunswick, Georgia. Now, there's in all likelihood these guys are going to get convicted of killing him, and it looks like they did. Anyone with an objective mindset would say that there are, but it's galvanized. There are hundreds of trials across the country, right? Thousands of trials across the country. And that's our system. That's our system. It's the way it's designed to be. It's the best system we can come up with. But when the media decides to focus on one of them and creates notoriety with it, it brings the wackadoos out. And it frames things in a way that have very little to do with the trial itself and the evidence being presented. Because people want to use the Rittenhouse trial should never have been political. Victims weren't black. He wasn't. The victim, the shooter wasn't black. There wasn't a single racial component to the Rittenhouse trial, but the political left, CNN, MSNBC, Democrats made it about race. The Arbery trial, I don't know that it has anything to do with race, but certainly there's a victim. And it didn't look like self-defense at all. But here's the scary part about this. I want to read this because outside the courthouse is where a lot of the news is taking place. Black armed militias. That means it's a racial militia outside the courthouse in Georgia where 3 white men, that's the way it's been written, 3 white men are on trial for the fatal shooting of a 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery, an unarmed black man. And a new Black Panther leader issued a threat. Now, these are the kind of threats that drive people into tribal thought. Y'all are in serious trouble because the wrath of karma is coming on America, said a man who identified himself as the supreme commander of the new Black Panther militia. We're not taking it no more. Now, they're armed. There have been coffins outside. It's just crazy. Even the Southern Poverty Law Center, not exactly a right of center, the left of center group, has labeled the new Black Panther Party a virulently racist and anti-Semitic organization whose leaders have encouraged violence against whites, Jews, and law enforcement. The message is we won't tolerate blacks and browns being murdered anymore, and we will pull up anywhere in the nation. Our long-term plan is to arm our entire community with responsible gun ownership. We will be holding classes in the future. We will be setting up workshops in all 50 states. Now, is that a supremacist situation? Is that a black supremacy? Because the political left is obsessed with this white supremacy. And I'm not seeing a lot of trials for these horrible terrorist white supremacists that are out there because, they're largely fringe. They're largely humiliated. There's no group that they affiliate with that. I think the left is trying to create opportunities for white supremacist groups to grow because they want to benefit from growth of white supremacist groups in some way. It's bizarre. But if you were to step back, we were to just step back and take a 30,000-foot view of life and death and criminal activity in the U.S., there's a lot you could say. Some racial things would show up. Some of it, well, all of it's bad. I mean, you can't step back at 30,000 feet and not look at the influence of Hispanic narco traffickers and the narco states to our south. You can't step back and ignore the Asian influence on the fentanyl situation that's killed now 100,000 people last year. If any group were to go out there and physically shoot 100,000 people in our streets, we would be incensed, and rightfully so. That would be an act of domestic terrorism, the likes of which we haven't seen. But yet, fentanyl has killed 100,000 Americans. Doesn't care what race they are. It's an indiscriminate killer of people who are using fentanyl. Very deadly drug. But we don't step back and look at that. And when you look at cops killing folks, they kill whites and black. They kill Hispanic. There isn't a race that cops haven't killed. And unfortunately, sometimes they do it for the wrong reasons. Truth, not about race. We have a lot of bad folks out there, and unfortunately a larger proportion of them are African American. We can look at 1,000 different reasons in society why that is the case, but it's also a truth. And if we could all just come together and say these things are true, these things are all true. If we stop looking at it through one group's right, one group's wrong, this exclusivity that all killings are anti-black or all killings are what, if we could stop looking at that, and we could start addressing some big things like black-on-black violence, which is a huge problem. We could look at the murder rates in cities like Philadelphia and Chicago and Detroit. We could look at the horrendous crime problem instead of, look at the defund the police movement now. It looks terrible. The whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing would not have occurred had the governor done his job and had the National Guard out, or Kenosha, Wisconsin done its job and been able to control the streets. It was out of control. Democrats would choose to retreat and then start making victims out of people than actually protecting folks to start with and preventing it from happening. But alas, I get away from what I want to talk about, which is Rashida Tlaib. So Rashida Tlaib went on Axios, and she endorsed a thing called the BREATHE Act, BREATHE Act, to abolish federal prisons during an interview with Axios. And that's Jonathan Swan from Axios on HBO. And he really, I'm going to play, I think it's about 4 minutes of this interview. I'm going to play at least the first 2.5 minutes, maybe longer. But you've got to, this is one of the leaders of the squad, they call them, one of the leftist leaders, the one who said, we're going to impeach the MFer. She's the one famous for that line, she told her daughter that. That's the line she gave her daughter, that she said in front of a crowd, that she has a hatred for Republicans that's relatively rare, but she wants to come across as very friendly and nice and soft around the edges. Because in this act, it literally states getting rid of all federal inmates. It's this pretense that there aren't really bad people. And it's also a pretense, if you listen to her, it's throwing out the entire judiciary. It must be based on race. It must ignore mental health. All of those people just made a mistake, meaning that the people who incarcerated them made a mistake, meaning the judiciary system is so flawed that nobody should be in prison. And he presses her on this. Now she tries to nuance her way through the question, but it doesn't quite. And then she tries to say, well, there are bad people, but just listen to the way this plays out.
In 2020, you endorsed the BREATHE Act, which is a series of proposals to transform America's criminal justice system and create, quote, a roadmap for prison abolition. The BREATHE Act proposes emptying federal detention facilities within 10 years. To what extent have you wrestled with any potential downsides of releasing into society every single person who's currently in a federal prison?
Yeah, I think that everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to just release everybody. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah, but did you see how many people are mentally ill that are in prison right now?
No, I know, but the act that you endorsed actually said...
Do you see? So he tells her it's in the act. And she says, yeah, but do you see how many people in prison are mentally ill? No mention of the thousands upon thousands of victims of these people. The rape victims, the murder victims, but you see how mentally ill they are. There's just a lot of mental illness. She goes on from there.
It says release everyone in
10 years. But think about it. Who are releasing?
But there are like human traffickers.
Oh, I know.
Child sex. So, but
I know.
Just to put it in context too, Chad, the ridiculous, constant, silent laugh and smile on her face through the entire interview. What about the human trafficker? I know.
Yeah, we're talking about releasing the monsters in our society. Those are in federal detention centers. Human traffickers, rapists, murderers, people who've committed the most heinous of crimes, and she laughs it off. I'm not being mean to her. Those are her words, her actions. It's the Kamala Harris kind of nervous. I don't know if it's nervous laughter, but this interview did not go well for her. So back it up about 10 seconds or so. I want to get through this because I want you to hear, she's focused on the mental health thing, and she's trying to get away from the fact that this act says release them all in 10 years. And she says, oh, but it's 10 years. You're going to release the most dangerous elements of society back into society over 10 years. In fact, let's tell you what, Kevin. I want to play this clip. I'm probably going to start it from the beginning because it's just too much. We're going to take a break, and we're going to go with. You've got to hear the rest of this interview. Much more to go here on the Chad Adams Show. We'll be right back.
Do you or someone you love suffer from back pain, poor circulation, or struggle to get a good night's sleep? Do you just need help getting into or out of your chair? US Med Express is Wilmington's leading supplier of Golden Technology lift and sleep chairs, carrying a variety of models in our showroom at 1733 Dawson Street. Our chairs lead the industry in power lift recliner features and advances in technology. Our chairs are FDA certified as medical devices, which means it's 100% tax deductible and helps with a number of medical conditions, including arthritis, poor circulation, and sleep apnea. Give us a call today at 910-500-6162 or stop by and experience our chairs for yourself at 1733 Dawson Street. That's 910-500-6162. 1733 Dawson Street in Wilmington. US Med Express.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO'sCoastToCoastTree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
Listen to Thom Goolsby on the Chad Adams Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
I'm State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better state. We are one of the fastest growing and most reviewed insurance agencies in Wilmington. That's because our customers love the personalized attention that we give to you. Let us help you get to a better state by visiting our website at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
You know, there's a certain level of connectedness that hosts have with listeners that is appreciated but often not recognized. That hosts become a part of your day. We don't realize what all is going on in your life. You know, and you get to know us. You get a window into, my life, the bizarre nature of me. And that familiarity, it's a comfort zone for a lot of folks, and let you know that as a host, no matter where I've been over the past 10 years, 11, almost 12, that it's appreciated. It's neat. I can remember when my father, who passed away this past year, would tell me about going to the Lions Club, and people knew I used to make fun of the fact that he drank like a phenomenal number of cups of coffee every day. That they knew that. There were listeners that went to his Lions Club. Oh, yeah, Tom, you get that 8th cup of coffee, that 10th cup of coffee today. And he's like, what? Oh, they're listening to Chad. There's a things in my life become events that you guys are familiar with. When my mother got sick, many of you were so kind and nice and appreciated. And it always has been that way. No matter where I've gone in throughout Southeast North Carolina, whether I'm in Wilmington or Charlotte or Bolivia, no matter where I've gone, Oak Island, Southport, I run into people who've either heard my voice, and it's amazing people's ability to sense things. It's remarkable, the human ability to discern. As you hear a 1,000 voices a day, you're in Walmart, you're in whatever store you're in, you hear people, and you just tune out. But somehow you hear something familiar, and your brain recognizes it. They recognize things, and it never ceases to amaze me how people remember things and recognize stuff. That's always appreciated. So, as on behalf of the talker, myself, and everyone who's made this endeavor possible, and we'll talk about that in the next hour. But back to Rashida Tlaib. She's trying to be all friendly. It's an interview with Jonathan Swan on Axios on HBO, and he's talking to her about this Breathe Act, which has every intention of releasing all federal inmates over the next 10 years. And let's go with the interview.
See how many people are mentally ill that are in prison right now?
No, I know, but the act that you endorsed actually says release everyone in 10 years.
But in 10 years, but think about it. Who are releasing?
But there are like human traffickers.
Oh, I know.
Child sex.
I know.
So, but you're saying, do you mean that you don't actually support that? Because you endorsed the bill.
No, I endorsed the Breathe Act and looking at the policies and how we incarcerate. Absolutely.
But it says in there.
But you cannot just blankly say, "Oh, look, she wants." That's not what I'm saying.
But that's like in plain text.
But what I'm saying is, look at who's in prison now. No, look at the folks that are mentally ill, that have substance abuse problems.
But I'm not disagreeing with you that there are people who should be in prison.
Yeah, but then why aren't you asking me about them? You're asking me about the human traffickers and others that should.
I'm trying to understand. No. What I'm trying to understand is your proposal is so sweeping. It does release everyone, and what I'm trying to say is
within 10 years, and obviously there's a process of looking at how can we get away from mass incarceration and move towards care first.
But what I'm trying to understand, because it is such a sweeping, concrete proposal, do you believe that there are still categories of people who should be behind bars?
There are absolutely folks that I don't I don't know, because right now the way the prison system is supposed to be like rehabilitatory, it's supposed to be rehabilitation, right?
Right.
No, really, that's how I
understand.
Yeah. I don't think there's any rehabilitation happening right now for those that might actually have, and again, a majority, there's so many that have mental health issues, other struggling issues.
Do you think all people can be rehabilitated?
I don't think so. I've been very clear about that. Okay. And I only tell you that because as somebody that has worked in the legal field and others, I don't even know if our society would even know how to be able to rehabilitate every single person that
you can't,
wants to harm people, right? But I can tell you that what's struggling for me is seeing that the statistics about so many people that at a very young age that are in there that probably would not have been in there but for the fact that they were struggling with mental illness.
She equivocates a lot through this. She's trying to get through this interview. She realizes at about the 1 minute mark that it's not going well. She recognizes that she tries to laugh it off, and she kind of catches herself realizing that she's saying the stuff she really feels out loud. She's saying stuff that she really wants to keep inside her head, and she has said it out loud. It's on the record. Yes, we'll release them all over the next 10 years. She's trying to focus on mental health. She's trying to focus on rehabilitation. She's trying to focus on these things. And she's commenting on that she wants to look at meaning the progressives, want to look at, in other words, all of the stuff all the work, the billions of dollars spent in putting these bad people behind bars. Most of them men. The overwhelming majority of folks in jail today are men. Now, it's funny, women don't want to talk about that. When they talk about equal stuff, most folks in jail are men. Overwhelming majority of people who die in battle, men. Overwhelming majority of people who die younger, men. Men. People who die violently, men. Overwhelming majority. There are differences between the sexes. There are differences. Jordan Peterson has mentioned this numerous times when people start getting in the equal pay realm and equal risk realm. But she says the silent stuff out loud, which is, it releases them all. But have you seen the mental illness? Have you seen... Mark Benson, a good friend of mine from Blue Line Radio, used to say, you can't rehabilitate people who aren't habilitated to start with. The sad reality is there are really evil people in the world. There are really bad people in the world. A lot of them aren't in jail. We saw that over the weekend where someone with a criminal history that stretches back decades, who his rap sheet is like a Stephen King novel. There are dozens of pages of every kind of crime imaginable, and he was the one that was out on bail that mowed down those people. That's not a redeemable, and again, he hasn't been convicted in a court of law. I love how they're referring to him as a person of interest. That's not someone you can habituate. That is a monster. A lot of domestic violence guys, they're monsters. They can't be sexual predators, pedophiles, serial rapists, serial murderers. Yeah, but we're only going to release them over 10 years. It's a presupposition that it's the narcissism of the progressive left that they really believe that if only they wrote the rules, if only they were in charge, but for the inconvenience of all the rest of us ignoramuses in society, but for us, they would make the rules and everything would be fine in society. You'd have a government job, you'd have government health care, you'd have government housing, you would have everything you need, every need met. The perfect Marxist world. It doesn't work. It's never worked. It never will work. Everywhere it's been tried, it failed. And not just failed, but millions dead. I mean, to the point in Venezuela where they're telling people to eat rabbits. Just look at societies where it's tried. And they never look at that. They never look at it. It's only because it hadn't been tried in America. That's the only reason it would work here. It would work. I mean, China right now, the Democrats are so fearful of China, they won't even point out the use of slave labor. The Uyghur situation, it's horrible, horrific. They don't want to touch it. They're just terrified of China. China represents, in many ways, everything they want to be. It's perfect communist society, but it's an evil, horrible place to be. And they don't want to touch the environmental issues. There's a column I'll get to later in the broadcast. It's kind of funny because it's the typical leftist narrative that, well, we don't really have a supply chain problem. What it is you stupid Americans that want to buy stuff. If y'all should just want to buy less stuff. If you just buy less stuff, we wouldn't have a problem. And it would be better for the planet. Again, saying the quiet stuff out loud. We have said, I'd said for over 10 years, I've been writing about this for 25, 30 years, is the goal of the left is to make energy far more expensive, they would love for gas to be $8, $9, $10, $12, $15 a gallon. They won't go after it for price gouging. If everyone raised the price, there's no price. Josh Stein and Cooper they're not going to go after anybody. They only do it in a hurricane. But if it happens across society, they're happy with that. Why? The more expensive you make conventional energy, the closer we can get to, wind-driven cars and solar. And they want to get there. And consequences to the environment be damned. If you look at some of these solar facilities that are 100, 200, 400, 500,000 acres, where it paves over everything, wildlife can't exist there, where you have to mine stuff and people can't live within 10 miles of where you have to get the materials to make solar panels, windmills that take far more energy to produce the windmill than it probably ever produces from an electrical standpoint. But I digress, because we were talking about prisons.
And Chad, crisis creates insecurity, and in COVID was a prime example, where insecurity creates this ability for the government to swoop in and go, okay, you're insecure, we have an answer, and rational, normal thinking people will do very irrational things. They will turn over their rights to the government.
Gladly.
Well, if the government says I can only have 1 gallon of gas a day, okay, I'll do it because I'm dependent on them to keep me safe.
Right.
And so that's why these crises continue to be an opportunity.
Well, they do, and one of the sad parts about that is every crisis is an opportunity. Never let rules for radical Saul Alinsky, never let a crisis go to waste, and they don't. 2001 gave us Homeland Security. Homeland Security, you feel safer. Homeland Security now monitors more American activity than ever before. It gave the government permission to basically spy on you, and we gladly said yes because we don't want to see another tower fall.
Because we were insecure.
With COVID, it was a test of sheepleness. How many people feel like sheep? I don't know. I do. Look at them driving around with masks in their cars. Those are your sheep. Those are the people that won't push back. We know who won't push back. That's not the way it's designed. Not the way it was supposed to be designed. How many freedoms are you willing to give up? I mean, Germans learned that the hard way. They gave up infinite number of freedoms and thought they were doing the right thing. And then they're turning in their neighbors. And then it was too late. And then it's too late. Much more to go. Second hour underway. So much more to go. We will get to that column about just buying less stuff because that's what it is. It's your fault. It's all your fault. It's all your fault, you silly consumer. You should be glad that your house is cold this winter and you can't afford things. You should be glad that you don't have a car with gas in it. You should be appreciative. Be thankful you live in a country that's so free that you can't afford the gas and you can't afford stuff and you can't buy stuff, and you should be proud. Proud Democrats love 10-gallon gas. We're tough. Anyway, much more to go.
Keeping Ocean Isle informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Hey guys, Ramsey personality Rachel Cruz here. Every day we get calls from people in all walks of life who want the same thing, a plan. Whether you're stuck in a job that you have no passion for or want to get on a budget, we have advice from the experts right here on The Ramsey Show.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You go, Karen! By simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now, she'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
After leaving the site of a domestic disturbance before police arrived and barreling into a parade underway Sunday in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And this from ABC 7 Chicago. Police Chief Dan Thompson says officers were not chasing Darrell Brooks Jr. despite his allegedly being involved in the dispute just minutes earlier.
There's no pursuit that led up to this incident. This is not a terrorist event.
4 of the 5 killed are women, 52 to 78 years old. The other, an 81-year-old man. Nearly half of the 48 people injured are children. Dr. Michael Meyer, head of pediatric intensive care at Wisconsin Children's Hospital in Milwaukee, says most of the 9 in critical condition are also children.
We have 6 patients who we list in critical condition.
I'm Tim McGuire.
More of these stories at townhome.com.
Tell me why Relief Factor is so successful in lowering or eliminating pain. I'm often asked that question. Pete and Seth Talbot, the father and son founders of Relief Factor, tell me they believe our bodies were designed to heal. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, 100% drug-free ingredients that each help your body deal with inflammation. Order the 3-week quick start now. Discount it to only $19.95 to see if it will work for you too. Call 800-500-8384. ReliefFactor.com.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink how you pay for health care. And here's why. Not only is it time for open enrollment for a lot of people, it's also when you can join MediShare and they'll waive your new member fee. Apply by November 30th. You'll save an additional $170. MediShare is the affordable alternative to health insurance. The typical family saves $500 a month, but join now. You can save even more. Call now. 866-89-BIBLE. That's 866-89-BIBLE.
Labor shortages will mean bigger, more expensive turkeys this year. Correspondent Mike Hempen takes a closer look at the economics behind your Thanksgiving feast.
The American Farm Bureau estimates a Thanksgiving feast for 10 will be about $53 this year, up 14% from last year. Butterball CEO Jay Jandren says labor, transport, and feed costs all soared and remain elevated.
The inflation's real. Everybody is seeing it. Everybody is feeling it.
Jandren says labor shortages led to processing delays, and while the turkeys waited, they grew bigger.
That's why we're seeing larger turkeys in the marketplace, and why you're hearing that there are fewer small turkeys, but there's certainly plenty of turkeys are just larger.
Jandren says there will be about the same number of whole turkeys this year as last year. I'm Mike Hempen.
Breaking news and analysis at townhall.com. Federal officials are coming down hard on passengers who misbehave on flights. Here's Jason Walker.
The FAA is proposing more than $160,000 in fines against 8 airline passengers over incidents involving alcohol. Officials say the biggest single fine tops $40,000 for one passenger who brought booze onto the plane and drank it, smoked pot in the lavatory, and sexually assaulted a flight attendant.
That is Jason Walker reporting. Gun makers have asked a federal court in Massachusetts to dismiss a lawsuit filed by Mexico's government. They say gun companies know their practices contribute to the trafficking of weapons in Mexico and facilitate it. Mexico is demanding a number of changes in how U.S. gun makers are allowed to do business in this country and elsewhere, and they're also demanding compensation for the costs of violence. More details on these stories at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Bob Agnew.
Please stand by.
We now take you live to the Institute of Rational Thought for a special broadcast. Hard-hitting interviews and relevant information to make your day. It's Chad Adams.
I'm just fascinated with things. I'll wait till the third hour. So I do have an announcement to make, and we'll just hold it till the third hour. Anyway, a lot going on out there in the real world. A little bit of a local story I do want to mention, and I'm not sure how I feel about this. What I do feel is that there are two sets of kind of standards of things. You look at this Hunter Biden situation, and the unbelievable number of reckless stories that are out there that were suppressed by the U.S. media. Had the last name been Trump, had it been Eric or Don Jr., it had been any of those folks, Ivanka, it would have been anything they breathed in the wrong direction. It was a major news story. But Hunter Biden's artwork, $450,000 per piece, his involvement in Chinese companies, his involvement in Ukraine, his connections to his dad, who the big guy is. The media kind of, well, I'm not so sure it means anything. Well, it does. It really does. And the suppression of it is problematic. And we have a story in North Carolina. And again, I almost prefaced this to make this next story sound bad. And I didn't mean to do that. What I mean is that a lot of times the left likes to say it doesn't like it when, these people benefit from nepotism in some way, that their connections getting them ahead in life. But that's the way the world works. I mean, people, if you're connected, if your family's connected to the right people, you benefit from that. And I know I'm kind of going back and forth on this, but because no matter what I try to say, there's no way, because you're listeners of this show, there's no way this story is going to sound anything but bad. And I don't mean for it to. It's at Port City Daily. The U.S. Senate confirmed President Joe Biden's nomination of Michael F. Easley to be U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina. It's a very powerful position. Along with two other North Carolina nominees, Easley was unanimously confirmed by the chamber Friday. Biden's 3 selections for the top federal prosecutor roles in the state were endorsed by Burr and Tillis. The Eastern District spans from the coast of the Cape Fear region up to Raleigh. In recent months, federal attorneys from the district have joined local law enforcement at press conferences to applaud recent investigations and convictions in the realm of gang activity and drug trafficking. By the way, I don't think it's making a dent in it, but we can, and if no matter how much we throw at it, that gang activity and drug trafficking is so much more complex than we're able to put a dent in it. In fact, they just build it into their business models. These astute business models that build into their models loss from law enforcement. Easley is the son of former North Carolina Governor Mike Easley. He works as a litigation partner for McGuire Woods. Now, McGuire Woods is one of the most powerful firms in Raleigh. They gobble up former legislators, former people in power. They gobble up people with a lot of government experience. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you are somebody, or if you're connected to somebody, McGuire Woods wants you. And that's not bad. They're so powerful because that's what they do. They build and build upon these connected relationships. And so being able to get one of their guys, former governor's son, make him a star litigator, and now he is a star, in the U.S. Attorney's Office. He has a good pedigree, but it's got to be tough for him to be out from under his former district attorney dad, former governor dad, Mike Easley from Southport. And again, no matter what I say, this story sounds a bit nepotistic. I mean, he's obviously connected. He's given speeches for Hillary Clinton. He is a connected Democrat. And he got a connected Democrat role. And that's the way jobs get filled. But imagine if his name had been Trump, how the media would have melted down. Or if it was Dan Forest's kid or Pat McCrory's kid. Pat McCrory doesn't have kids, but if he did, imagine. But it's a straight up story. I'll give Port City Daily credit. It's a straight up story. But the reason it's a story is because he's Mike Easley's kid. The other two attorneys didn't get this kind of story. They're mentioned way down at about paragraph 15. Dina King, Sandra Hairston, and Michael Easley Jr. are impressive and qualified individuals who will serve North Carolina well as U.S. attorneys, Thom Tillis said in a statement. I was proud to work with Senator Burr to identify, interview, and recommend these three candidates. I look forward to their success in their new roles. I want to thank the White House for working with us on these nominations. So, anyway, but elections have consequences. And now Joe Biden's team is doing everything they can to fill the ranks of attorneys with left-leaning Democrats. So it's
Chad, from your experience, it seems from the outside looking in that there's some type of a fast track.
There
like
is.
You said, we don't know the other two attorneys' names, and we never will. But this guy is on the fast track. Like when Obama came into the scene, nobody knew who he was, and within what 2 years?
He's president. Yeah,
he's president. I mean,
and Obama benefited from, if you look back at how he got into the Illinois legislature and how he got into the U.S. Senate, both of those, it's an interesting story about what happened to his opponents in those races and how
when he did vote, he only voted president. It's kind of crazy.
But he benefited. Well, he's a very charismatic guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Amazingly charismatic guy. He checked a lot of boxes for the political left and becomes president. I mean, kind of the rise to fame Jack Kennedy had. If you look back.
He was probably a cooler guy than Jack Kennedy ever was. And yet at the same time, I absolutely vehemently disagree with every policy and just about everything he ever said.
But
because it was bad for him.
I mean, and you look at it. So the question you always have is this chicken egg thing. So was he a stellar attorney, or was it that he got the opportunity to be a stellar attorney because of his name? And I would say it is a chicken egg situation. And so he was able to UNC School of Law. It's really hard for white men to get into UNC School of anything. So he got in there. He represented Boeing in 2019. The airline company was charged earlier that year. But how did he get these big cases? Represented Lowe's Food, a contract dispute. He also represented Duke Energy, Progress, as the company's challenge to a $25 penalty from North Carolina regulators who regulate alleged groundwater contamination. So he actually was against the environmentalist in that case because he was but Duke Power, McGuire Woods, these guys all played together in the same sandbox. So again, it is just one of those things that you can't escape. The reason this is a story is because he's a former governor's son. It is. And along with that Democrats do a remarkable job of keeping the stable full. They do not cast aside former candidates or anything. Unless something really bad happened, they keep that stable packed. And I can remember, Congressman Bob Etheridge was one. They kept Bob Etheridge around and protected him no matter what election he lost. He was going to have a position. Democrats were going to take care of these people. They do a remarkable job of doing it. And Mike Easley, I think we haven't heard. I mean, from a U.S. attorney, he and the connection he's got, you may well see him in a statewide role at some point in time. And now, lest you think, oh, Chad, you're being unfair. Republicans do it too. Sure. I mean, you look at the Bush dynasty. Certainly the Bushes of Connecticut, are seen as a Bush from Texas and a Bush from Florida, I think not the land commissioner, but one of them is actually a statewide position office holder, Hispanic, Bush in Texas. So, it happens on both sides. But having that connectivity and all of that gives you access and power. So when
Don't you think that with who was the Jeb? Don't you think that it was sort of a referendum from
the public
right to go? You know what? There's just nothing there.
It was a straight up primary. He had the money. All the big money was behind Jeb Bush, and he just did not have
the substance.
No, he didn't. He was a good governor in Florida.
Sure.
But he just at a time the American public was sick of the entire insiderness. They were sick of DC. He was not the creature they wanted in the swamp.
He was sticking to the talking points.
Oh, he was the traditional establishment character.
Exactly. And Trump came in and said what many people were actually thinking and feeling, but were too afraid to say in this climate.
Oh, it was a different world. And Trump.
Now I heard he's going to run again.
Jeb? No. Jeb's done. I'll say that. I could be wrong, but I think
they're
Jeb's
testing the waters anyway.
Well, we're going to take a break and come back. Much more to discuss. I'm going to get to this Brownstone Institute article we haven't talked a lot about COVID. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but the role that resignations are playing. The media's ignoring a lot of this, and we can document what the media is ignoring. Stay tuned. You're all looking for that special gift. Lines are long, traffic is frustrating, supply chains in the news. Just take a deep breath. If you're anywhere near Oak Island, come by Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive. Avoid the traffic, the lines, the frustration, and get that extraordinary and special gift. From high-end diamond rings to Larimar, from necklaces to bracelets, watches, and unique jewelry. And you also get one-on-one service with their experienced staff. Great prices now, just in time for the holidays. Come by and check out Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive.
Well, hey, y'all, it's Holly Brewer
and Amy Ludwig and Kristen Ludwig
from Just Think, the podcast where we don't want to tell you what to think. We just challenge you to do it. We're happy to have some of our episodes featured right here on 106.7 The Big Talker on Saturdays at 11 a.m. So we hope you join us in the conversation and most importantly, just think.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
I am State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better place. Visit us online at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Dana Lash.
We have elected officials that work for us. Elected officials who apparently forgotten where they get the power, from where they get the authority to determine laws that govern all of us. They believe that this authority of consent somehow has made them beyond reproach and has allowed them to treat us in contemptible ways.
The Dana Show.
3 to 6 p.m. only on the Big Talker FM. It is that time of year, isn't it? Christmas lights, Christmas lights, Christmas lights. Got to put the Christmas lights up. I intend to put a lot of Christmas lights up. I don't tell you. If I had 30,000 of them, I would. I'd love it. And I tell you what, this is the weird thing. I have two schools of thought on Christmas lights. And only two, but probably a variety, but mainly two. And it is that, one, the part of me that grew up in Hispanic culture, steeped in Hispanic culture. I love that culture. To this day, I do. Having grown, you just don't realize. I feel blessed to have been a part of that growing up. But when you're really young and extremely impressionable, the Latino culture is amazing at Christmas. It's very festive. It's extremely excited about, being Christian. It is very Catholic, but still, it's very festive. It's very colorful, because think about this: in most of Central America and South America and a lot of all of the Caribbean, there is no snow. So the concept of white lights never really made it there. So it's this massive, overly colorful light. So I love colored lights. But on the other hand, I love the serenity of white lights and the ornateness of white lights. So when I used to decorate in the central part of the state, because I had a place on a major highway, I loved mixing it up a little bit. But now, down here at the coast, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do, but everyone's got their thing. 299-7535 if you want to get in on the conversation, 299-7535. But I love it. Plan to be festive, and we have a lot to be thankful for in spite of the craziness that surrounds us. We have a lot to be thankful for. Now, the Brownstone Institute has been doing some stellar work on asking questions that most media sources should be asking. They've gone back and looked at vaccine mandates. They've documented some of the issues with the vaccine development. They're doing good work, and I think they do a good job of trying to overcome bias. We find so much bias, and my bias alerts go off left and right all the time. But finding good stellar writing, and I'll just try to go through this. Liam Cosgrove wrote it. To what degree have vaccine mandates have played a role in the massive voluntary exodus from the workforce? It is not possible to know with certainty, but still, any true journalist would at least entertain the possibility that the two are correlated. So we have a lot of people walking off jobs. We've seen it. We've heard about it. And we have vaccine mandates. But nobody's really done a good job of documenting the degree to which these two could be correlated. You would think. Now, they didn't say it is. They said you would think people would ask. Finding such a journalist proved to be a difficult task. ABC, CNN, CBS, Washington Post, Reuters, CNBC, The Atlantic, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, The Hill, Business Insider, Fortune, FT, Fox, MarketWatch, and even right-wing publishers like New York Post and Fox Business have all covered the mass resignations with nary a mention of vaccine mandates. The Washington Post, citing a single anecdote, went so far as to suggest that unvaccinated workers are causing others to quit by making them feel unsafe. So in other words, instead of the vaccine mandates being suggested as a possibility, the Washington Post cited one person who said that they're leaving because they feel their unvaccinated coworkers are making them less safe. Time magazine, to their credit, at least addressed the possible relation and tried to provide a counterpoint, citing employee vaccination numbers in the high 90% mark ahead of mandates. Like Washington, with UW hospitals at 97% vaccinated, sound great. They just forgot to do a follow-up piece after the mandate went into effect, when Washington lost 3% of its 63,000 state employees in a single day. That's a sizable percentage when you consider that monthly separations, terminations, plus people who quit are typically 3 to 4% in the U.S., and this occurred in a single day. So over the course of a month, you get about that number. They got it in a single day. Not to mention, these are added on atop routine employment friction. Now let's discuss the awfully interesting correlations between the announcements of vaccine mandates and the Great Resignation. They give these phenomenal charts, and you can see these charts, and they make a note where the mandates went into effect. And it's astounding. So if you look at the level in thousands of people who quit and certain dates, and so there's a mandate that kicks into effect, and then boom, a massive drop-off. The U.S. has clocked 2 consecutive all-time highs for the percentage of workers quitting within a single month, 2.9% for August, 3% for September. This coincided precisely with an onset of highly prominent vaccine mandate announcements made within the private and public sectors, one of the earliest being Google on July 28th, inspired a tsunami of corporate signaling throughout the month of August. In similar fashion, California set the trend for a series of state-level mandates, most of which announced in August, with enforcements to begin in late September and October. August was indeed the first month in which this topic seeped into mainstream public discourse. the buzz increasing in September as Biden announced the mandate for federal employees. This seems like a coincidence worth mentioning, yet none of our national news outlets did mention it. None of them. But there's more. Historically, upswings in resignations have correlated with commensurate upswings in hiring. As businesses hire more, workers have freedoms to shop around. However, we are not seeing that this time around. Total hires increased by about 7.5% between March and September of 2021, and quits increased by 24% during that same period, a threefold margin. So, if you pivot to look at two states who are handling mandates very differently, Colorado enacted one of the strictest vaccine mandates, while Arizona became the first state to enact a private sector ban on vaccine mandates. Colorado subsequently broke its all-time record for highest quit rate ever recorded. 3.4% of the workforce just walked off the job. To quote the Denver Post, what is unusual about the new record high is that it coincides with a still relatively high 5.9% unemployment rate in Colorado in August. Normally, elevated unemployment and people voluntarily jumping ship don't go hand in hand. What could possibly account for that? For example, when Colorado's unemployment rate was at 5.9% in January 2003, the quit rate was at 2.6%, and it was 2.7% in January of 2014, another month with 5.9% unemployment. In September, Colorado shattered this record with an adjusted quit rate of 4.3%. Meanwhile, Arizona was one of only 4 states to experience a decline in their quit rate, moving from July to August, and it did so by the greatest margin. The raw rate continued to decline in September. So out of 50 states, Arizona is demonstrating some of the strongest data contrary to the Great Resignation trend. But Arizona isn't allowing forced mandates. Lastly, let's shift our focus to what the unvaccinated holdouts are saying. According to a recent survey by the Kaiser Family Foundation, 72% of workers vow to quit if they are not given the option to test weekly, and 37% say they will quit even with testing. Surely some of those vows will prove stronger than others, but we should note this poll was conducted between October 14th and 24th, so barely a month ago. These folks are not included in the resignation data we saw in August or September. Remember, most mandates were not officially in effect during those months, with the largest mandate of all, Biden's private sector one, still to come. If these respondents stay true to their word, this could equate to a 5 to 9% exodus from the workforce on top of what we already have seen. This will only get worse if religious exemptions are removed. Again, this is not proof that vaccine mandates are the primary cause of the Great Resignation, just evidence that they are playing a role. This is an important message to the publishers at big corporate media outlets. Conveniently leaving these discussions out of your articles will not persuade readers into believing these topics are unrelated. Instead, it will cause them to question how a journalist could publish such negligent reporting. This type of behavior will only foster more distrust in mainstream institutions. There's another more sinister symptom of denying that the labor shortage and vaccine mandates are unrelated. It absolves political leaders of any accountability. Given that unemployment is a major bipartisan issue, average citizens may oppose mandates if they thought they were contributing to driving people out of the workforce. Consider New York, for example, where they will be revoking religious exemptions to the vaccine for healthcare workers on November 22nd, which was yesterday. And yet, just this week, New York nurses publicly complained about staffing shortages, calling it a dire nursing shortage. You would think that the governor may adjust her course of action upon hearing this, but in the made-up world where vaccine mandates have zero impact on employment, our leaders can get away with a callous policy decision like this. So, think about that. If the media is going to ignore, I mean, this is, you've heard me talk, if you listen to me any length of time, you hear me talk about the concept of static and dynamic worlds. In a static world, I could raise taxes to 85%, and there would be no change in your behavior. In other words, you would still go out and do everything. You would work. If I made your income tax 85%, you would still work for less money. You wouldn't change the way, but the truth of the matter, we live in a dynamic world where people's behaviors are changed by the policies enacted upon them. If we were to raise the income tax rate to 85%, there would be a lot of trading. There would be a lot of under the table money transacted. There would be a lot more cash transactions. There would be a way to diminish income because no one's going to work harder for less. They're not going to continue to do that. There is an action and there is a reaction. And that's what we're seeing here with the vaccine mandates. To protect, when we're seeing a mass exodus of workers and there's no explanation, or at least weak ones, ignoring the most obvious one also does not build trust. The American public's just not that dumb. There's a lot of sheeple out there, to be sure, but they're not all sheeple. Just go to any store today and look at who's wearing. Now that we don't have mask mandates in most places, there are people that still wear masks. And you know what? I completely respect their ability to do so. They want to do so, good for them. But you see a lot of folks who aren't as sheep-oriented. And again, I don't want to imply that people wearing masks are sheep. But I'm saying if the government tells you to do stuff and you automatically do it without asking, wait a minute, why? Why am I doing this? And a vaccine mandate comes down the pipe and people want to throw themselves, out of the workforce, there may be a connection there. And there probably is. And we should be asking those questions. And the media should be reporting that. So, hey, you guys, even in this local media market, why don't you start asking that question? Do you think workers are leaving? They are. They're having nursing shortages. We're paying a lot more money for the massive nursing shortage. And it's not just burnout. There's mandates that are causing people to leave the workforce. Much more to go. We'll be right back after this here on the Big Talker FM.
Gregory with WWAY News. Investigators still looking into the cause of that weekend fire on Bald Head Island that destroyed at least 4 houses. The fire destroying several buildings near Lighthouse Landing, spreading quickly due to strong winds. Safety personnel responded from 8 surrounding towns, and the flames were contained around 5 hours after the fire began. More information on the weekend fire is expected to be released within the next few days. The state's Division of Marine Fisheries scheduling public hearings for shellfish lease proposals in New Hanover and Pender counties. In New Hanover, a virtual hearing scheduled January 5th to discuss an application for a bottom lease near Middle Sound in the Intercoastal Waterway. And then on January 13th, they'll focus on applications in Pender County, including a shellfish bottom and water column lease in seaside areas near Topsail Sound and leases in Banks Channel and near Green Channel. With Christmas 32 days away, Jimmy's in Wrightsville Beach is kicking off its annual holiday bike drive. The bar always gets a lot of donations and this year hopes to collect more than 1,000 bikes for children in need. You can drop off a brand new bike before December 18th at Jimmy's. You can also send a bike online to the bar, or you can Venmo a donation. More details on our website, WWAYTV3.com. And Bladen County Schools saying thank you to staff, one coffee at a time. The new superintendent had the district contract with Barefoot Brew to serve free coffees and smoothies at schools from the shop's mobile cart. Over the next 3 weeks, the cart will be at 15 locations. Each employee will get a beverage between 7:45 and 9 a.m. For more on these stories and more, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Donna Gregory. Have a great day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for a taste of winter on this Tuesday. We are going to see a good deal of sunshine across the Cape here, but our temperatures today really going to struggle to get into the low 50s. And with those north winds, anywhere between 10 to 15 miles per hour, really going to make those conditions feel like the low to middle 40s for most of the day today. And then tonight, we are turning quite cold with freeze warnings in effect for a few neighborhoods as our temperatures dip down to the upper 20s and the low 30s. Get your full forecast from WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Listen to Thom Goolsby on The Chad Adams Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Christmas Vacation, isn't it? I don't know why that movie's still funny to me, but the whole plugging into the lights, that's still just fun stuff. It is that time, man. It's just upon us so quickly. Sometimes time just passes. It'll be an interesting Christmas for our family. Very different this year. So, the infinite wisdom of the Biden administration, there's two things to let you know. One, that apparently, and I love the way this was worded, but White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki confirmed a report on Monday that President Joe Biden is telling allies he will seek a second term in 2024. Now, he turns 79 on Saturday, so he'll be like 82 when he seeks re-election. Remember how all the media and the left made fun of Reagan's age? He was 77 when he left office. When he left office. And Biden is 78 when he assumed office. 79 now. And I just love the way she confirmed it. She was asked if he was going to run for president. Yes, that's his intention, Psaki answered. It's his intention. He didn't say what office. No, I'm just kidding. That's terrible. So we'll see. I'm not convinced that Biden will be the candidate running. I think that if Biden pursues this, it's going to be challenging for Democrats to not challenge him. They're really good at playing team ball at certain times, but with this seat, him running doesn't necessarily mean Democrats don't see it as an open seat.
Chad, you know, though, that they were well aware that he was not going to probably even finish this term. They didn't want him as president. What do they really want? What is it they really want?
They want their agenda enacted. And so in Biden, they saw a guy who ran as a centrist. You know, he tried, come on, man. You know, that's his famous line. Come on, man, I'm not a socialist. But the socialist agenda that they had, they found could easily be enacted with him. I mean, he puts John Kerry in charge of things. He beat Buttigieg, who has no business being transportation secretary in charge of things. Kamala Harris is a horrific vice presidential choice. It is a comedy of errors, except it's affecting our lives.
What is your take, though, on this whole Kamala Harris thing? Do you think they're really trying to unload her?
I think she has proven to be a liability. I think that there is tension in CNN documented, and this is Democrat on Democrat, so there's no Republicans even part of the story. She is a problem for the White House. When you poll that much less than your president, and he's already upside down, he's in the 30s, she's in the 20s from an approval standpoint, they either they are doing a terrible job of giving her things that she can deal with, or she's just incapable of dealing with things, or both. But the puppeteers behind this thing, the administration is not being run by the president.
Correct. That's
the issue.
Point.
And so
whoever they put in Kamala's spot, whoever's in that second spot is who is going to run.
Well, they want Buttigieg in that spot. I believe they would love to have They would love to make her an ambassador and let her step down and move Buttigieg into that spot, and then he would be the presumptive nominee for 24.
Exactly.
Now, if he even makes it through a whole first term.
Why do you think, Chad, that they think that particular person
checks boxes?
I don't think
if you want some insight,
high percentage of people.
I've been watching this show on Apple TV. It's about the morning show, and it is a very difficult show to kind of get into and grasp, but it does a really good job of illustrating how absurd wokeism is. The recognition that you have to be black and gay or Asian and female and or straight or not straight, and how that looks to an audience and why you need to represent that each. So instead of just being a good journalist or instead of being stellar at your job, it's about how you can represent a certain, there's a silly line, not the line, but a silly part of the story where the weather guy, who is Cuban, he's doing a story about Groundhog Day, and he's just having fun on the air, and he says something to the extent that, oh, the groundhog's my spiritual animal, man. He didn't see his shadow, and that's great. We're tired of this winter, and he's referring back to 2020. And the Twitter feed gets lit up because how dare this Hispanic guy culturally appropriate the spiritual animal meme. And so the network forces him to apologize on air for saying the word spiritual animal. And he's just saying in jest, he's like, wait a minute, I'm Hispanic, you're making me, there was no ill will. Well, you culturally appropriated. How would you feel if someone culturally appropriated, stuff from Hispanic culture? And he says, I don't care. I don't care. It's like when there are folks that are not upset about Thanksgiving, the political left loses its grits over it. And by the way, I do want to get to the John Stossel Thanksgiving thing. I'll probably do that tomorrow. But the left is overly sensitive about everything, and it's amazing how paralyzed they get in their decision-making process because they want to check boxes.
Well, I just looked it up. A Gallup poll here, which they're reputable. Gallup finds 5.6% of U.S. citizens identify as gay in this country.
Okay.
So why?
Well, it's not about who is. It's about okay. Let's go back. This is going to be this. You're getting into a very uncomfortable situation, but not for me because I don't really care. I care, but I don't care about being uncomfortable.
Let's just say it's people that like the color green.
Right.
Why would you push an agenda of such a small percentage of people? It doesn't matter what the issue is.
It is a tribalism that the left must have. It must check boxes. Kamala Harris wasn't the best candidate for this job.
But she checked boxes.
She checked boxes. Okay. Pete Buttigieg checks boxes.
All right.
It's a matter of the left can't. So what's happening on the right is qualified, competent, amazing individuals achieved great things. Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell, Richard Grenell, these people. Now, for the left, they check boxes. On the right, they're just competent people. So when you get on an aircraft, you just want the most competent person flying that plane. When you're getting surgery, you want the most competent surgeon doing surgery. But the left says, well, I want X number of. They want to check boxes. It's this racial profiling, and it's sexual profiling, and the left does it constantly.
These leaders are flying a plane with 380 million people in it,
right?
And it's all about the boxes checked. But when you get on that little commuter plane. You want to know that the guy can fly a plane.
It is this rather bizarre way that the left. That's why the left never can really accomplish as much as it'd like to. It moves the ball forward because every negotiation for them is removing some level of freedom.
I just like to pick your brain on that stuff because you have inside baseball
It's
stuff
just funny seeing it. So it's when you see it in action, you're like, when Elizabeth Warren said what she said about being Native American. And, even the Native Americans were like, come on, you're not. There's nothing. We have a really tight genealogical way of looking at this. You're not. You're just not. Stop. But if you just left it alone, if she'd have just said, look, I want to help, then they would have been fine. Help us out. But don't sit here and pretend to be something you're not. But let's look at what just happened. This happened. This morning it was posted. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit and say that this Biden administration that is largely driven by it's agenda-driven organization. It is not driven by the acumen. It is not driven by a strong leader. We do not have a strong president. There is no measure by which you can say we have a strong president. He's really not in control of his agenda. He's not in control of his foreign policy. He's not in control of his domestic policy. He's not in control of the border policy. There's no area where we believe as Americans that he is mastered of any domain. Nobody. That's why his poll numbers are upside down. He's not seen as a strong leader. He can sit there and say what he wants to, and he goes out and can read off a teleprompter for a given period of time. This is not the most accessible president. He doesn't answer many questions. When he does, he finds himself in really deep trouble very quickly and sometimes has this appearance of not really being all with it. Now, that's not me judging. That's just the nature of Biden's presidency. So we've gotten ourselves in a serious problem with energy production. We were just a year ago, we were energy independent. We could, in other words, that doesn't mean that all the energy we produced here stayed here. It meant that on balance, because energy is on the open world market, energy is a global commodity. Natural gas is, refined crude oil is, all of it is. And we produced enough of it in totality to be competitive at the global market. We also produced enough in totality that we, in theory, would not have had to import any. But it's on sale in the global market, so moving it from point A to point B keeps prices competitive. But the Biden administration slammed pipelines. It slammed our ability. It overly regulated. It's made it more difficult for producers here in this country to produce energy. Meanwhile, the rest of the world's like, this is great for us. Great. Imagine playing football and handicapping your own team. So Biden's the coach of the Americans. They're playing against OPEC, and they say, okay, we want our best quarterback, and we want our best running back, and we want our best tailback. We want y'all to sit on the bench. We're going to play with that 8 people. We're going to put eight men on the field. And OPEC says, we're going to put our star quarterback in, our star running back in. We're going to play with 11. We're going to crush you. We're going to crush you like the weak person and team that you are. And the American football team will get rolled by OPEC, which is what's happening on the global market. We're getting rolled by OPEC. It's so bad that's why energy prices are now, we're not energy independent anymore. We don't produce more than we consume. We're dependent on OPEC, who has said, you know what, we're going to turn the valve down a little bit. We're going to starve you guys a little bit and make gas prices go through the roof. And the Biden administration says, please make more. And they're like, we don't have to. We don't work for you. We control the global supply now. Since you're handicapping yourself, why would I want to increase production? I'm doing great over here. You have restored everything. You've made us so we don't even have to work all that hard. And so what does the Biden administration in its infinite wisdom do? And we refer to them as administration because it is kind of not him. Joe Biden announced on Tuesday that they're releasing 50 million barrels of oil from the strategic reserve to help bring down energy cost in coordination with other major energy-consuming nations. The move is aimed at global energy markets, but also at voters who are coping with higher inflation and rising prices ahead. Gas prices at $3.40 a gallon, more than double their price a year ago. That's a 100% increase in a year. And the political left wants this because they want to get rid of gas-powered cars. And the way to get rid of gas-powered cars is you make it so that people can't afford to have a gas-powered car, or at least only the wealthy, only the ones driving SUVs to global climate change conferences, or using expensive aircraft or charter aircraft. Those people, they're okay. But all the rest of you, sorry. You're going to have to get on a, electric bus and go places. Biden has scrambled to reshape much of his economic agenda around the issue of inflation, saying that his recently passed $1 trillion infrastructure package will reduce price pressures. But the strategic reserve thing, I don't get. You have this for an emergency. It's not an emergency. So the Biden administration, notice that they never react in a very capitalistic way. They never react at, wait, what can we do to help energy producers in this country? Because that would upset the environmentalist movement. Why not unleash the power of our own? So you're admitting you're dependent on foreign sources of energy. The way to combat that isn't to take the stuff you've stored up for an emergency and then drain that down, which makes us, a little bit more vulnerable. These are our strategic reserves for strategic reasons. I mean, if the Chinese were to, attack the West Coast, we would want to have strategic fuel. We need it for strategic purposes. But so we're draining it down. Instead of saying, hey, all you folks in Texas and Arkansas and all these wonderful places that can produce it and crank it up, baby. Let's get out of your way and let you guys put us back in energy independent mode. We were there. We could be there again. Get all our oil production back up and running. Strip down some of the regulations so we can get this thing cranking instead of shutting them down. Turn on the pipelines. Yeah, baby. Open up those pipelines. Quit moving fuel by rail and by truck, which is far more dangerous than a pipeline. Get that Keystone up and going. And people are going to say, well, Keystone moved a different kind of product. Yes, it's all energy, though. All of it's energy. So we're releasing the strategic reserves. It's going to look really nice. It's going to look good. Is it going to change anything? Notice I don't even put it at $3.40 a gallon. That's the national average. Biden owns that. It's your Biden fuel cost. He really did. The policies drove energy independent a year ago. Energy dependent now. These are desperate maneuvers. These aren't maneuvers that are going to make things better. And so we're going to consume that 50 million. What are we releasing here? 50 million barrels? We'll consume that in no time. How long can you do that? I love this. In coordination with other major energy-consuming nations, including China, India, and the United Kingdom. Unleash our potential. Why are Democrats so opposed to us releasing our own potential? Why do they want to stifle innovation and crush us? It's the same thing with solar panels and wind. Kevin's just having fun over there messing with my head. So what would really be exciting, if we hadn't been subsidizing wind and solar since the 80s, it would probably be far more prominent. That's another bit of irony that Democrats' lack of forethought. By subsidizing, you don't necessarily create innovation with subsidy. You create a reason to try to get more subsidy. If we had moved, imagine if we hadn't subsidized wind and solar, I think it would have become far more innovative, like computers did. It would have become far more innovative, like eye surgery has. It would have become far more innovative, like almost everything technologically related that wasn't subsidized. That has become more amazing. Like the internet even. Anyway, much more to go. We're going to take a break right quick. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here on Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
Wake up to Good Morning Carolina, weekdays at 5:30 a.m.
And Good Morning Carolina. It is a very busy news morning today. I'm Donna Gregory.
And I'm Jeff Rivenbark. We're glad you're starting your Tuesday with us.
Be prepared and ready to go for the day ahead.
For the time being, we are dry and quiet, but we are dealing with some patchy fog.
And catch up with the overnight news you need to know before heading out the door.
We'll have more details and more live coverage in just a few moments.
Get up early for Good Morning Carolina, weekdays at 5:30 a.m.
One Love Tennis started in 2013 to give back to young boys and girls. We now go through 460 kids a week that are learning about life skills, learning to succeed in life through academics and tennis. Putting those two together, if you do them well, you can write your own ticket. To get involved in this program, go to our website, one-love-tennis.org.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
Government has become too big, too overtaxing, and is constantly over-regulating every aspect of your life.
If you agree with that, tune into Consumer Choice Radio every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM with me, Yael Osowski.
And me, David Clement. For an hour, you'll get expert analysis on what the government is sinking its teeth into next and how you, as a consumer, can push back.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
Jill, why don't you tell the class what you did this weekend?
Well, my dad and I went in search of some magical minnows and found a zillion of them in the stream from our lookout rock. Then my sister and I escaped from an evil slug king and went back to my super twig fort for safety. Then we told stories till it got dark, and the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Where were you, Jill?
We went to the forest. It's not that far away.
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Oh, it's pumped up music right there. Now, we don't know if we have a caller or not. We think we do, but let's put them online and see if they're there. Are you there, sir? No. So we're having fun, always fun with tech, but we're trying to figure out a way to get Thom Goolsby on because he's supposed to be on. We're trying. Everybody is trying to do what they can do. So we will see what we're going to do. I'm hopeful that we can. We have some fun guests tomorrow. Supposed to have Dale Falwell, Pat McCrory, probably another one or two. I'm not sure. Fully stacked day before Thanksgiving, but we will try to get our fun stuff up and running. Now, strategic reserves, it's like everything. It's like if you were looking at a way to wreck the economy, there are a lot of easy, if you're president, there's a lot of easy ways to do it. Make things more difficult. Make things more difficult to buy, screw up the supply chain, screw up the southern border, screw up foreign policy, screw up the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Oh, you have Thom? Okay. Well, then we have Thom Goolsby on. Welcome to the show, Thom. How are you? Is he there? Thom?
I'm here, Chad. How are you?
I am fantastic. Well, I'm glad to have you on. And how we're doing this, I don't know, but you can hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. So tell me, the budget finally got done. Roy Cooper's going to sign it. This thing. Now, the one question I saw it's, but part of it I really like. It's supposed to reduce tax rates year over year until we get down to about 3.99%. Great. Looks like it gets rid of the corporate tax. Are you tracking what's going on with the budget by any chance? Because I know you're tied up with UNC Board of Governors a lot.
I am. I'm still up in Raleigh doing a good bit of lobbying for both our local hospital and a couple of other healthcare organizations and some business ones. So yeah, I've been trying to track it.
Here, help me riddle me this one, because several people have asked, and I have the same question, so it's not one that's untoward. The budget is a 2-year deal. Now, this thing is supposed to reduce taxes over the next 4 to 6 years, but you really can't tie up anything beyond that budget itself. I mean, no one has to adhere to getting us to the 3.9. I mean, you're a former legislator, so it sounds good in the press, but really there's no say-so more than, year and a half out from now.
That is true, and if the Republicans maintain control, and if you look at how the redistricting is currently going, it looks like they probably will, since they are in charge of redistricting and things are going well for the Republican Party. Chances are, with the commitments that they've made and the kind of history you have with Berger and Moore, they'll keep those promises. But you are correct. If for some reason Joe Biden became super popular and he led the Democrats to victories across the board and they took over, they could change those priorities completely, and we know they would. First thing they would do is start raising taxes and throw us back into being like New Jersey and Illinois, other than being a good state with sound fiscal policies and a state that's committed long term to reducing the size of government and reducing taxes and stimulating the economy. But you are right, Chad. They can only control what happens that biennium.
Yeah, and again, the Democrats got a little bit of what they wanted. Republicans got a lot of what they wanted. Finally, Governor Cooper, in year 5 of his dictatorship, got to sign a budget rather than veto it. Heading forward, though, and I kind of just in your former role as a legislator, as a senator, what do you see as the challenges moving forward? I mean, it's going to be an election year. Democrats are not in a strong position. Looks like Republicans could be. Looks like they could press their luck a little bit on some other issues.
Yes. We have no idea in this current economic environment, as crazy as things are. So many of the issues we're dealing with now, we had all these crises on the state level. Thankfully, we don't currently have any hurricane off the coast pounding us. We're not running any kind of huge deficits, not at all at the state level. We've got all of that under control. I feel like there's going to be so many national issues that are going to be driving everything, with the kind of price inflation we're seeing, with the kind of federal push for tax policies and all this COVID aftermath and shortages and all those kind of things. I feel like so much of it's going to be on the federal level, and the state is going to try to keep itself on the straight and narrow. these are just uncharted times. And I, for the life of me, Chad, can't believe what we're seeing with the escalation of, real estate prices. And again, so many folks still suffering, trying to work and deal with the aftermath of COVID. I think this winter is going to be interesting. I can't tell. I'm not a futurist. I have no clue what the future is going to hold, but I feel like at the state level, at least, we're on some solid ground.
Well, very well said. Tom, we need to take a break. We're at the top of the hour, but because of fun tech, we're going to get you on for the next segment. Can you join us for the next segment?
I can.
Thank you so much. We'll return with Senator Thom Goolsby right after these messages here at the Big Talker FM. Stay tuned.
Keeping Charlotte informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
My mother was the cornerstone of our family. She shaped me as an actor, as a musician, as a human being. So when she was diagnosed with colon cancer, it was like our whole family got cancer. And she died when she was only 56, so this is personal. Now, hopefully, my heartbreak is your wake-up call. Colorectal cancer is the second leading cancer killer, but you can prevent this disease. Screening finds precancerous polyps so that they can be removed before they turn into cancer. I've been screened. If you think that you're at an increased risk like I am, ask your doctor when to start screening. And if you're 50 or older, please get screened. I'd do anything to have my mother here. Please do all you can to stay around for yourself and for your family. Screening saves lives.
Including China. Target says it will no longer open its stores on Thanksgiving Day. Here's correspondent Jeremy House.
The company is making permanent a shift to the unofficial start of the holiday season that was suspended during the pandemic. To limit crowds in stores, retailers last year were forced to turn what had become a weekend shopping blitz into an extended event with holiday sales beginning as early as October. That forced shift turned out to be a good move as U.S. holiday sales in November and December rose 8.2% from the previous year.
That's Jeremy House reporting. The National Retail Federation predicts this year could see an even bigger rise. Police say the suspect in a deadly Christmas parade crash in suburban Milwaukee was in a domestic disturbance just minutes before he killed 5 people and injured 48. Waukesha Police Chief Dan Thompson said there's no evidence a man knew anybody in the parade. On Wall Street, Dow futures are down 28 points right now. NASDAQ futures off by about 14. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Your pets have the same energy they used to? Do they have problems with itching, scratching, a dull coat, or goopy ears? Then your pets need Dinovite.
DINOVITE.com.
For over 20 years, pet owners have trusted Dinovite to supplement their pet's diet.
We started Dinovite, and in our first box, we noticed a difference.
Dinovite is an all-natural daily supplement made from whole foods that help support your pet's immune system, digestion, skin, and coat.
Within 3 weeks, he's not scratching and itching, and he's an all-around happier dog.
Today's commercial pet foods are processed at high temperatures, which bakes out all the essential goodness. These processed foods can lack the essential vitamins, enzymes, and probiotics that contribute to overall good health. Adding a scoop of Dinovite to your pet's food bowl is the answer.
If you love your pets as much as I do, you'll want to do what's best for them to live long, healthy, happy lives. I have 2 cats and 2 dogs. All 4 of them are on the Dinovite.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
DINOVITE.com.
A bus carrying North Macedonians home from a tourist trip to Istanbul has crashed and caught fire in western Bulgaria, killing at least 46 people. As the crash is now under investigation, we get more details from correspondent Charles de Ledesma.
Authorities say the accident happened around 2 a.m. and there were children among the victims. The cause of the crash was not immediately confirmed, but it appears the bus hit a highway guardrail, crashed and caught fire. Photos taken shortly after the crash showed the bus engulfed in flames with plumes of thick black smoke rising from the scene. Bulgaria's interior minister at the crash site said he had never in his life seen something more horrifying. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Israel has begun administering the coronavirus vaccine to children 5 to 11 years of age. The country recently emerged from a fourth COVID wave, and daily infections have been relatively low for the first few weeks. More from townhall.com. A case of mistaken identity, as Jason Walker reports.
A homeless man who ended up in a mental institution for more than 2 years because of mistaken identity is suing the state of Hawaii and various police officers, public defenders, and doctors. Joshua Spriesterbach's attorneys say officials haven't responded to a petition seeking to correct his record so he cannot be mistaken for another man ever again. The suit says Spriesterbach maintained he wasn't the man who was wanted on a warrant, but he ended up in the Hawaii State Hospital where he says he was forced to take psychiatric drugs. Jason Walker reporting.
Italy's antitrust watchdog has fined Apple and Amazon more than 200 million euros for cooperating to restrict competition in the sale of Apple and Beats branded products. More on these stories at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Bob Agnew.
Please stand by.
We now take you live to the Institute of Rational Thought for a special broadcast. Hard-hitting interviews and relevant information to make your day. It's Chad Adams.
Rolling along, hour 3 underway. Beautiful day, albeit wintry. No wintry mix, however, just cold for down here. Hey, we get in the 40s, people flip out. It's 40-some-odd degrees outside. Wait, what? It does happen every now and then, as Joe Bastardi predicted. Thom Goolsby with us right now. We've been talking a little bit about the state budget, his work with UNC Board of Governors we haven't addressed yet. But, Thom, we appreciate your time. Also, special shout-out to you. You have been in radio for well over a decade. You've produced podcasts. You have done – do you still do podcasting? Do you still produce your own stuff?
I do. I actually, every single day that the stock market is open, I do my Charting Wealth podcast and have been for, probably 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Or maybe more. And have people all over the world that join us, and we talk about the stock market, help people learn how to chart and figure out what's going on. I added to it a couple of years ago. We started charting things like Bitcoin and Ethereum also because, again, those things move in patterns that are discernible. So we've added some cryptocurrencies to it, which I find interesting. We track gold and U.S. 20-year bonds and also look at the NASDAQ 100 and the S&P 500. So always, tracking, seeing what's going on as we went through COVID. It was fascinating as we've seen the government print. I don't know, you hear the economists talk. Apparently, we've increased the money supply in the last year 40%. That is just phenomenal to me. So whenever anybody talks about inflation, and as you and I talked at that first segment about what the state is up to, that's all well and good what we're doing here, but the impact of inflation on all of us, when you dilute the money supply by 40%, I mean, think about that. That literally is decreasing the value. It's like a 40% tax that we've been hit with, and you're paying it in your food prices and the increases in those and increases in cars, anything that's real. Now, if you own real property, if you own stocks, you similarly are seeing those kinds of things inflate in value, and it's not that what you have is becoming worth more. It's that dollar in your pocket is becoming worth less, and that's the challenge for our state officials, is just trying to do what they can do at the state level, but they're fighting with both hands tied behind their back as the Federal Reserve and as the politicians in Washington just continue to take us down this road of, I think, disaster.
Well, certainly, again, credit to you. I've always marveled at your time management skills. I don't know how you're so organized, your time, your ability to even get down. I used to when you were in your car, you were on the phone, but those were planned calls. You had cutoffs, and you never sound in a rush, though. You never sounded in a rush, but I knew you had to get to the next call, and between the litigation stuff you did and the legislative stuff you did, but you were way ahead of the curve on podcasting and doing radio snippets, before it was even a thing. You were doing it, 2009, 10, 11. You were doing this stuff online long before it was a trendy thing to do.
Well, I'm fascinated by technology like you are. And what's amazed me is that radio has held on, continues to hold on, and I'm convinced now it'll just keep going. But I thought that, these new technologies were going to supplant radio, and what they've really done is added to it. And again, radio has just continued to be, and I think will continue to be, just this core media that continues to be out there, and that you can sure supplement and add to. But it's fascinating to me that it was really our first, besides the printing press. I mean, it was truly our first modern technology, and it still fascinates people to this day, and it's just going to continue to be out there. And I like it too, because unlike what we've seen happen, Chad, where people are censored by big tech, radio, you still have the Alex Joneses out there. You still have you had in the past, the Art Bells, the people that wanted to speak about alternative patterns of thought, different theories. They've not been able to be censored, which is what makes radio, again, so beautiful. Unlike what we see where, you can have people who've been convicted murderers, child molesters, whatever else, they're out there speaking on the internet, but if you say the wrong things politically, they will non-person you, and you will disappear. Well, at least we have the radio waves to fall back on.
Well, again, I got to ask you, as you look at the UNC Board of Governors, you see what's happening on campuses across the country and here. This tribal approach to everything. We were talking about it before we had you on, about how the left likes to check a box. Kamala Harris checks certain boxes that have nothing to do with her ability to do her job. Pete Buttigieg checks certain boxes for the political left from a marketing standpoint, doesn't necessarily mean he has any knowledge about transportation issues. And we see it on college campuses when they fill their roles with certain types of individuals. It looks like they're checking boxes more than looking for the brightest minds to educate. What am I missing about the college view I have on that?
I think you're exactly right. Again, it is a political ideology. It's actually, I read a great article. If I can find it, I'll send it to you. It's about how secularism is truly a religion. And they were talking about, wokeism and all these kinds of things being religious dogma. And that is more what it's about. If you say the right things to the proper gods, then you're allowed access. If you don't acknowledge what they say is truth, and again, it's their truth, it's all based on their faith, it's based on their dogma, on their words, on their theology. If you don't use those proper terms, then you are an outcast. You can't be accepted. You are literally a pagan. You are run away from the proper religion. And that is the way it operates. And if you don't look at it that way, you're not going to properly understand. You're going to think, well, these people are crazy. They don't make sense. Well, they make total sense to themselves in their own little cult. And they're serious about it. And people say, well, nobody could just exclude someone because of their color of their skin. Didn't Dr. King teach us that that's not the way? That's not their ideology. They don't believe that Dr. King would not be accepted. He would be one of the Uncle Toms of the right at this point. And he would not be a black person anymore. He would be a person of no color, non-color. He would be a no person. And that's the way they see things, and that's the way they operate, and they are absolutely 100% serious.
The political correctness ran its course in the 90s and became a joke in and of itself in the early 2000s. There were, these bedtime stories, politically correct bedtime stories that were just these satirical looks at how unserious that movement became. Do we believe that wokeism will begin to finally burn itself out? 156 different genders because it's a social construct. We have, you have to recognize pronouns because people don't want to be recognized by he or she or they. They want to be called something different. They want to create new genders, Z, and things of this nature. Do you think this burns itself out? Because it comes a point where having a conversation, any kind of normal conversation, becomes difficult because you have to understand an entirely new language.
Possibly. I mean, we're so siloing people now with your ability to live in your own little world, as we see, Zuckerberg creating his new little online world where you can just sort of go off and you can live in Middle Earth if that's where you want to be, and just avoid any and every other kind of thought. I mean, you see the Bill Maher's, you see some of the folks that you would consider on the left, but not these crazy woke ideologists trying to speak the truth to this power. And they also get turned into, just the enemy. So I think so. The nice thing, Chad, that we see over and over again is the truth does tend to win out because it's the truth. I mean, you can run into a brick wall 10 times and keep telling yourself that's not a brick wall, but when you start breaking bones and, losing your sense of what's actually going on because you're concussed yourself. I mean, at some point, it seems like people would wake up, but it can be a lot longer than we might think and a lot more dangerous.
It is alarming, and it becomes difficult when you hear people trying to discuss it. They get lost in their own kind of verbiage. They get lost in their own, what they're trying to achieve. They think they know what they're trying to achieve, but they're so lost and caught up in the language utilization that it falls apart often, to me. But that's my observation. Any final thoughts as we head toward Thanksgiving 2021, Senator?
No, I just wish you and your family and everybody, all of our listeners, a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family. They're the only ones you have, no matter how difficult it can be at times, but just wish God's great blessings on all of you.
Senator Thom Goolsby, thanks for being a part of the broadcast, as always.
Thank you, Chad.
Much more to go here on the Chad Adams Show. We'll be right back after this.
Purchase a Golden Technology lift and sleep chair from US Med Express at 1733 Dawson Street, you get the benefit of a lift assist chair, a recliner, a memory button chair, a zero gravity chair, a Trendelenburg device, and a sleep chair, all in one of the most comfortable pieces of furniture you have ever experienced. Our chairs lead the industry in power lift recliner features and advances in technology. Our chairs are FDA certified as medical devices, which means it's 100% tax deductible and helps with a number of medical conditions, including arthritis, poor circulation, and sleep apnea. Give us a call today at 910-500-6162 or stop by and experience our chairs for yourself at 1733 Dawson Street. That's 910-500-6162. 1733 Dawson Street in Wilmington. US Med Express.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's a tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO'sCoastToCoastTree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Acoustic wave therapy at the Frank Institute is a revolutionary treatment for inflammation, issues of blood flow, and is a solution for the constant suffering of chronic pain. Through the localized transmission of sound waves, stem cells are stimulated to bring about restored blood flow, vascular regeneration, and the disbursement of pain receptors to affected areas. If you've been told that your issues could not be treated without surgery or prescription, give us a call. Non-invasive, non-surgical, and prescription-free. Acoustic wave therapy is only available at the Frank Institute. Call today, 910-679-8534, and ask about acoustic wave therapy.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a signal fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
A great article was just released from SpectatorWorld.com about the origins of the virus. You know, we've been trying to track this back down, and the truth generally comes out. Mark Ridley has the article, and it's well documented, it's well done, and the lab leak theory got a major boost with this. I'm going to go through that. Not right. Well, dadgummit, there's so much I want to cover, but this one's interesting. I'm going to get down to, I could get into a lot of the weeds about where a certain virus was tracked back to Cambodia, Thailand, Japan, elsewhere in China, one that's similar to COVID, 96.8% versus 96.1 or 98.1, 98.6. But the really interesting part is when there were emails that were uncovered by a lawsuit. This is in the heart of the article. Emails uncovered by a lawsuit from the so-called White Coat Waste Project returned the ball right back over the net. They comprised an exchange between the American Virus Hunting Foundation, the EcoHealth Alliance, and its funders in the U.S. government. The scientists discussed collecting viruses from bats in 8 countries, including Burma, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, between 2016 and 2019, but to avoid the complication of signing up local subcontractors to their grants in these countries, they promised to send the samples to a laboratory they had already funded. And where was that laboratory? It was the Wuhan laboratory. Some of the emails talk about sending data, not samples, but some talk repeatedly about sending actual samples. Quote, all samples collected would be tested at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, reads one from 2016. Another in 2018 even talks of sending bats themselves. The emails make it clear that Wuhan scientists would sometimes be working in the field alongside their U.S. colleagues. Remember, the central issue is how a bat virus got to Wuhan. So now, in both, because everyone agrees it started in Wuhan. There's no whether you're it got from bats, the wet, or you know, in the food market, or from the virology lab. Everyone agrees patient 0 was in Wuhan. So now, in both Wuhan and Laos, the only people who knowingly transported bat virus samples to Wuhan, and only to Wuhan, were scientists. Giles Demanoff, a New Zealand-based data scientist who's been analyzing this issue, says the natural spillover theory has no explanation for why this would result in an outbreak in Wuhan of all places and nowhere else. As for that missing cleavage site, which is another document. Another leaked document revealed in September by Drastic, a confederation of open source analysts, sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Dr. Peter Daszak, head of the EcoHealth Alliance, spelled out plans to work with his collaborators in Wuhan and elsewhere to artificially insert novel rare cleavage sites into novel SARS-like coronaviruses collected in the field, so as to better understand the biological function of cleavage sites. His 2018 request for $14 million from the Pentagon to do this was turned down amid uneasiness that it was too risky, but the very fact that he was proposing it was alarming. Most of the funding for the Wuhan Institute of Virology comes from the Chinese, not the American government, after all, so the failure to win the U.S. grant may not have stopped the work being done. Moreover, exactly such an experiment had already been done in a different kind of coronavirus by, guess who? The Wuhan Institute of Virology. It's almost beyond belief that Dr. Daszak had not volunteered this critical information. He played a leading role in trying to dismiss the lab leak theory as a conspiracy one, using his membership of the World Health Organization China investigation to support the far-fetched theory that the virus reached Wuhan on frozen food. So it's starting, more and more lights come on. There's more daylight being shed on documentation on the paper trail. Now we have a trail of bats being collected in the field, transported that carry viruses similar to this, being transported to Wuhan. We know that. But even finding relevant viruses in Laos still won't answer the question of how they got loose in Wuhan, and with a continuing failure to find any evidence of infected animals. In other words, they've gone through and tested all these animals in that food market. They've not found anything even close to COVID. But now we do know that diseased bats were transported to the Wuhan Virus Institute of Virology. The astonishing truth remains this. The outbreak happened in a city with the world's largest research program on bat-borne coronaviruses, whose scientists had gone to at least 2 places where SARS-CoV-like viruses live and brought them back to Wuhan. Those are documented facts now to add to the tapestry of the story. Find it absolutely fascinating. Apologies for the phone issue. Apparently there is a phone issue. We can call out, but people cannot call in. Just letting you know, if you did see the numbers disconnected, it is an issue with the wonders of, if I told you, I can't repeat what our tech folks have told us on the air. But we are aware of it. We thought it was corrected, but it's a Microsoft product, and so you never know. Now, the reason I say this is I do want to pass along a little bit of information that many of our folks are aware of, but the talker, as you know it, will cease to exist tomorrow around midnight. It has been a long endeavor. The folks that when Paul Knight first started it back in the mid-2000s, and then we were able to reacquire it 5 years ago. It has been a labor of love. It has been one of frustration. It has been one of accomplishment. We're very proud to have, been a major supplier of information through a hurricane, through political intrigue, through stories, through hosts, through 8 different salespeople. In spite of all of the challenges, we persisted. This was a handful of investors. It was way underfunded, but the love of doing it and the desire to communicate information to you guys was never about ego. It was certainly about believing in the power of radio, as Thom Goolsby articulated earlier. It's the power to communicate to you folks, to let you know in this market that a conservative voice could exist, an independent conservative voice, not a large, huge corporation that can tell you what to say and what not to say. The entire time that Joe was on the air, I never went to Joe and said, you can't talk about whatever. As the majority shareholder of this operation, it has been my honor and pleasure, privilege to be a part of it. And it was neat to see Joe go from being a news guy and an opinionated guy. I had many disagreements with Joe on political stuff. And look, I love to work with him on his uhs and ums, but that was him, and that's Joe. And he built his own audience. He built his own show. He did it. He worked. Tireless work ethic. And this entire operation was driven by a handful of people. And TK Thomas and the work that he did to patch technological aspects together, upgrade it, make things exist that had never existed before, to keep things on the air in the most difficult of circumstances, morning, noon, and night, 2 a.m. in the morning, whenever it was, whenever we heard from you that things didn't sound quite right, we got on it and upgraded, moved things around, did it differently. And Kevin, who stepped in when we needed assistance, Kevin Groves, who did remarkable stuff, very creative, and helped. A lot of people helped. Over the past year, Ted Bodenschatz, my partner with this endeavor, we worked tirelessly, speaking to dozens of folks about the potential. So what happened is we had a lease on this signal to use the signal with our partners at Carolina Christian Radio, who are phenomenal folks, and we have been very blessed to work with them. There came a time that they no longer wanted to be landlords. Completely understandable. We approached the end of that lease. They provided us the opportunity to purchase that signal from them, and we relished that opportunity and spoke with dozens. And when I tell you, I cannot even begin to tell you how many phone calls, how many meetings, how many different people in this marketplace we approached and discussed and put a business plan together and did everything we could to try to figure out a way to purchase that signal. And the folks at Carolina Christian Radio were wonderful to work with on that. We proposed a variety of options. They agreed with a lot of those options, but in the end, it wasn't there. There was enough of a difference that it wasn't going to move forward. And so we felt it was best to get them their signal back in their hands. So at the end of tomorrow, it will be back in their hands and will become a Christian station once again. We have a Christian ethic here, but certainly this is not a gospel or Christian music station. And we appreciate what they have allowed us to do over the past few years. We appreciate the folks at the Murkison building. We've been a part of that family. They have been fantastic folks, and I will be seeing them later this morning, but they've been good to work with. So all the 12 different hosts, I think we've dealt with 12 different shows that we produce and make. So looking forward to the next chapter of what this could be on the digital side of things. I don't know. Tomorrow could be I thought that my last time on the microphone was going to be in 2013 or so. Little did I think I'd be returning to a microphone when we started this endeavor at Civitas as a podcast. My show started as a podcast, got picked up by four or five stations. And then we decided to acquire the Talker again. And from that show became the Talker once again, an independent conservative station in this market, WFBT. And we've had a good time. Hurricanes, natural disasters, pandemics, everything you could throw at somebody. Challenges. Many of our shows got blacklisted, so ad agencies would not talk to us on many occasions because of certain shows or content. There is clearly a desire to quash conservative talk radio. But in spite of that, there were a lot of good advertisers that said, you know what, we like this. And without a sales team, a lot of folks supported it. And the endeavor was positive for the past 8 months or so. We paid back a tremendous amount of debt. And I'm very proud of the work that everybody put into it. A lot of volunteer work too. So, but anyway, wanted to thank you guys for allowing us to present our version of things. And you have been a part of that every step of the way. We'll have more to say about this tomorrow, I'm sure. And we're supposed to have Governor Pat McCrory, former Governor Pat McCrory, who's running for U.S. Senate. Dale Fall will probably be joining us. So a number of folks. We'll try to figure out the details on that one as well. So just wanted to make you aware of that. And again, the folks at CCR, Carolina Christian Radio, have been fantastic to work with. We really did appreciate everything that they've had to do and look forward to their success as well. If the opportunity presents itself in the future, who knows what'll happen? I thought my last time on the radio was 2013. Tomorrow could be my final time on the radio, even though I love this format, love this. My dream was always to be an afternoon host. That was what I wanted to work toward. But alas, the past year and a half, I went off the air in May of 2019, really to help run this endeavor and make this work and produce income for my family. So my wife running for clerk of court in Brunswick County. I want to make sure that is a successful endeavor. She is the most qualified person I've ever met to run for that position. And I want to make sure that is a victory as well. So I will be focusing a lot of my efforts in that race behind the scenes and to make sure every hand that needs to be shook gets shook and every vote can be gotten. It looks like anyway, I love that political intrigue as well. And looking forward to that extremely positive and amazing race. She is 5 times the candidate I would have ever been. So, and I enjoyed being a candidate long ago, enjoyed being a county commissioner. Anyway, I'm waxing philosophic here. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this. Please stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Donna Gregory with WWAY News. Investigators still looking into the cause of that weekend fire on Bald Head Island that destroyed at least 4 houses. The fire destroying several buildings near Lighthouse Landing, spreading quickly due to strong winds. Safety personnel responded from 8 surrounding towns, and the flames were contained around 5 hours after the fire began. More information on the weekend fire is expected to be released within the next few days. The state's Division of Marine Fisheries scheduling public hearings for shellfish lease proposals in New Hanover and Pender counties. In New Hanover, a virtual hearing scheduled January 5th to discuss an application for a bottom lease near Middle Sound in the Intercoastal Waterway. And then on January 13th, they'll focus on applications in Pender County, including a shellfish bottom and water column lease in seaside areas near Topsail Sound and leases in Banks Channel and near Green Channel. With Christmas 32 days away, Jimmy's in Wrightsville Beach is kicking off its annual holiday bike drive. The bar always gets a lot of donations and this year hopes to collect more than 1,000 bikes for children in need. You can drop off a brand new bike before December 18th at Jimmy's. You can also send a bike online to the bar or you can Venmo a donation. More details on our website, wwaytv3.com. And Bladen County Schools saying thank you to staff, one coffee at a time. The new superintendent had the district contract with Barefoot Brew to serve free coffees and smoothies at schools from the shop's mobile cart. Over the next 3 weeks, the cart will be at 15 locations. Each employee will get a beverage between 7:45 and 9 a.m. For more on these stories and more, head over to wwaytv3.com. I'm Donna Gregory. Have a great day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Get ready for a taste of winter on this Tuesday. We are going to see a good deal of sunshine across the Cape here, but our temperatures today really going to struggle to get into the low 50s. And with those north winds, anywhere between 10 to 15 miles per hour, really going to make those conditions feel like the low to middle 40s for most of the day today. And then tonight, we are turning quite cold with freeze warnings in effect for a few neighborhoods as our temperatures dip down to the upper 20s and the low 30s. Get your full forecast from WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here, your host of the Lynn with Ben Show, live on 106.7 FM, the Big Talker Radio, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. We talk all things mortgage and real estate related, and we'd love to have you join us this Saturday, 9 a.m.
Trans-Siberian again? Sometimes I have trouble. I've been to both Mannheim Steamrollers and Trans-Siberian's concerts, and Trans-Siberian's just louder and kind of rockier, but they're both pretty remarkable groups. Now, I'm going to tell you a personal story because I'm sure it's something all of you can relate to. I am someone who rarely gets under the weather. Probably about once a year I'll get a cold. My colds typically start out little drainage in the back of the throat, irritating night sleep, and then it feels a little better, and then you blow your nose for 6 or 7 days. That's pretty much a cold. That's my worst case scenario cold. Okay, I just not someone who gets sick very often. I had a really bad. I called it my $15,000 sore throat one time, where I went to DC and had meetings day after day after day, and I had a sore throat, and it just got worse every day, and I was just treating it with ibuprofen and Tylenol, cold or something, cold and flu or whatever. And it just got worse and worse. And I remember I was driving back from DC and it was so, I remember at the final meeting, my throat was so bad that when I tried to swallow, I saw stars. The pain was so great, but I tried to act like everything was fine. Now, I don't advise doing what I did. What I did was wrong there. But by the time I got home, I could not eat. And I drove myself in the middle of the night to the emergency room because I had not a seizure, but certainly a shaking uncontrollably from a chill. I got into the emergency room and they're like, I said, well, I got some stuff in my car. Can I go get it? And they're like, no, you can't. You're immediately coming right back. And next thing I know, I'm in a bed with an IV hooked up and they're doing a scan of me and they're saying you have an abscessed tonsil. We're going to have to do emergency surgery or you could die. That's how quickly that went down. It was just a maze. I was like, wow. And then they gave me these souped up antibiotics, and it was weird. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm miserable. Or 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm kind of miserable. And then by 3, I'm feeling remarkably better. My throat by 5 was not hurting at all. They tried to put me in a room. They couldn't get me into a hospital room until 11 the next day, and they released me at 12. No surgery. Amazing. Remarkable. Followed with a doctor. He's like, hey, everything looks good. Just take care of yourself. And I remember, so I was like really amazed at the ability of medical technology to handle things. And I left, and then I started getting these weird bills. Talk about when Dale Falwell talks about bills. The bills were just popping in from everywhere. And I started calculating things, and my cost after insurance, I was fully insured, was $16,000, and I was in the hospital for less than 8 hours. So 8 hours in the hospital, $2,000 an hour, with no surgery, by the way. And I ended up paying the doctors, and I paid for the medications, and I questioned the hospital charges. I went to, at the time, Wake Med. I went to Wake Med and met with them about this, and they couldn't explain the bill to me. And I wrote to the board of directors of the hospital. I wrote them extensive letters about, can you help me understand these costs? I don't mind paying doctors. I don't mind paying for what I need to pay for. And lo and behold, and this is me giving me away, and lo and behold, the bill was removed. Like I paid what I felt were reasonable charges, but it pretty much went away. Like my sore throat, because it just seemed absurd. $16,000 for a sore throat. Okay, all that's done. All that's in the past. Haven't gotten really sick since then. Get a little illness about once a year. Well, I was adding it up. 17 days ago, I had the beginnings of a cold. That was on a Sunday evening, and in fact, I was doing the show then, and I didn't feel great on that Monday or Tuesday, and it felt well. By Tuesday, I felt really good. I went to Raleigh and came back. But by Wednesday, started feeling a little not so great again. And by Friday, I had to call in and get a substitute host and everything. I think that's the case. And then last week, I was still feeling bad, but I did the show every day. And then, but it was weird. The symptoms would come and go. It was just very weird. And then they got worse. And by Friday of last week, Thursday, my left ear was impacted and I could barely hear. And then it popped open Thursday night. I came in and did the show Friday, and then but my symptoms were, I was coughing and stuff like this, and as soon as the show was over, that ear went out, and Kevin was here, I went straight to the doctor. So we're 2021, I didn't go to the emergency room because I didn't feel it was an emergency, went to the doctor, stayed outside till they called me in, they were really great, looked at me and said, could have a virus, could be bacterial, we'll give you a COVID test, we'll give you, another test, strep, but you don't have strep. And so they gave you a test anyway. And I'm like, okay. So he says, well, don't take the antibiotics until at least Sunday, because if it's virus, it'll kind of clear up. If not, it's probably, bacterial. That was modern. That's how different medicine. It was really quick. And then I was feverish from Friday afternoon, all day Saturday off and on, and most of Sunday. Started taking the antibiotic on Sunday. So today's Tuesday. That ear never stopped. The impaction on that ear is still, right now as I'm talking to you, let's see, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So we're in day 5. So I'll be going, and I'm just going to ask them, I'll say, hey, how do you get this ear thing cleared up? Because the throat's much better. Anyway, that's Medicine 2021. Oh, it's probably this. It's maybe. We don't think it's COVID either because, well, you didn't have any other COVID symptoms. So we don't think it's COVID. And I was vaccinated. So if that matters. Just wanted to share that. Just get it out there. Don't know if it matters. Just kind of weird. I would think this would be good. Now, La Nina pattern has developed in the Pacific Ocean. That pattern means if you're a snow lover, get ready. Probably going to have some good snow. Now, do we down here probably get snow? No. But you folks up in the Triangle, Triad area, probably lots more snow this winter. Thought I'd throw that out there for you. And since we're getting shorter on time, I do want to mention good news for you people, all 25 of you in the market that like Joe Biden. Looks like he's going to run for re-election. He did kind of announce that. He was press secretary was pressed on that. He'll be 82 years old when re-election rolls around. So we'll see. He's 79 as of Saturday. Wanted to get that one out there. Now, 2 other stories. Well, there will be 2 stories I'll get to. This article at Vox magazine really stymied me. It's by Terry Nguyen, and it is this typical liberal response to when things are bad, blame you. It's not our policies as progressives. It's not what we do to impact supply chain or fuel cost or make things worse for you or make life tougher or things more expensive. When you go to build a house, a lot of that expense is regulatory. It's government has a cost. There's a tax. Regulations are a tax by a different name. But let's go to this article. Black Friday, the Friday after the Thanksgiving holiday, once marked the start of the holiday shopping season. In recent years, though, the event has begun to feel something like hygiene tradition. The holiday retail calendar begins a little earlier every year, but 2021 was really notable. Some retailers started dishing out early bird sales and reminder emails as early as September. Shoppers were encouraged to order their gifts as soon as possible or risk having packages arrive late due to rampant supply chain disruptions and mailing delays. Even books, yes, books weren't safe from the impending shortages. E-books aren't. Anyway, the pandemic briefly curbed consumer spending, but not for very long. As the country opened back up, Americans felt the urge to go out and shop, an impulse that retailers and marketers happily indulged. The early fall holiday shopping schedule was billed to benefit customers by reducing their annual holiday stress. Early holiday shoppers' sprees are good news for retail corporations, logistics companies, and the U.S. economy, which all stand to profit from a protracted shopping period. Blah, 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 blah. But here's where we go. This year, on Black Friday, perhaps we should reconsider this shopping addiction. Oh, it's an addiction now, is it? Aha! We have figured it out. We're all addicted to shopping, like breathing. When the stuff we want is so hard to get a hold of, why go to such great lengths to buy it? Consumers have options to not order things manufactured overseas, to source things locally from small businesses or artisans. We also have a choice that eliminates the potential for shipping or supply. We just buy less. We know that our collective, you start seeing these words, Greek, collective. We all know that our collective consumption of consumer goods, from the creation of plastic toys, we had an entire discussion about plastics the other day. If you haven't heard it, go back and listen to that show because it's the new boogeyman. The creation of plastic toys to the fossil fuels that ship them, it isn't good for the environment. Yes, on a consumer level, our ability to control resource consumption is minimal, but that doesn't mean there's no good in a holiday season where gift exchanges don't require Amazon Prime or transit via multiple shipping containers. Mindfulness. You see how they reveal themselves eventually. Mindfulness has its own benefits, especially for affluent consumers, which includes America's upper middle class. The higher income consumers amongst us use far more resources than the less well-off and are responsible for influencing shopping norms. Americans are now aware that than ever on the global supply chain and its vulnerability to unexpected snarls, like the Suez Canal. Now, that one was a snarl, true snarl. The rest of these snarls, not as snarly. Not as snarly. Raw material shortages and shipping delays. Experts predict that these problems set off by the reaction to the pandemic, mind you. It wasn't that the pandemic wiped out the workforce. It was that government shutting down things wiped out the workforce. It was, again, government reaction to the pandemic. Experts predict it won't let up until 2022 or 2023. These domestic efforts, while heartening for consumers, are unlikely to assuage existing supply and demand issues. Meanwhile, the growing severity of climate disasters. You see where this is going? The growing severity. There is no growing severity of climate disasters. There isn't a growing severity. There is not. The storms or the cyclonic activity is not greater. It is not more impactful. It's just a whole more damn ton of folks are living near the coast. A lot of folks living in areas that are prone to tropical cyclonic activity, which happens to have been happening for thousands of years and will continue happening.
That's what it is, Chad, is so much more people are living on the coast.
And we have more documentation.
And we're breathing more.
I know.
So we're breathing out CO2, and it's causing...
And deaths from cyclonic activity have dropped substantially over the past 50 to 100 years.
What I don't understand is how come, Obama said we have stopped the rising of the seas by your vote for me.
I know. It's insane. It's insanity. It is insanity. It is, and then he goes into a book called The Uninhabitable Earth. There is something of a moral crime in how much you and I and everyone we know consume, given how little is available to consume for so many other people on the planet. That is the income redistribution model. That is We need to be socialist. Everybody needs to live in a grass hut and heat it with dung. It is that mopey, negative, unattainable. If you think about innovation, you know, when you're approached by people who are begging in downtown Wilmington and they use Square, which is an app for them to have an account, and you can beg and ask people for credit cards now. Did you know? So this is a bunch of hooey. If it's pretty fascinating in America, even the beggars have cell phones and they can use an app to collect money. This entire article, shopping by that logic is a sin. It is the secular worship at the altar of progressivism, that everything good in life is bad, is terrible. Not about being good stewards. No, it's our pure existence. And we could wipe out humanity and the left would be happy, but there'd be no one to appreciate their work effort. So that being said, I just thought that when I saw that article, I was just like, oh. Now, to add to it, if you want to feel even more chagrined by something, I saw this article and it's my favorite. I'm going to give you, I don't even want to give you the headline, but apparently in the UK, there are more sentient beings. There are. So it's not just, we're not alone. We're not alone. We're not, and we haven't been. We haven't been alone for long. We just didn't know that we weren't alone. So to add to it, we're gonna read to you what the UK has determined about the new sentient beings that are out there. Stay tuned.
Catherine, this turkey tastes half as good as it looks. I think we're all in for a very big treat.
Save the neck for me, Clark.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony is an author whose last book is Rules for Conservative Patriots, and it can be purchased on Amazon. His website is www.drtonymag.com.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
Listen to Tom Goolsby on The Chad Adams Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
Hey guys, Dave Ramsey here. Every day I get calls from people in all walks of life who want the same thing, a plan. Whether you're 18 looking to do college the right way or 80 and want to retire with dignity, the Ramsey personalities and I are here to help. We'll give you proven strategies for your life and your money right here on The Ramsey Show.
Welcome back. Tell you what, I was looking on the Twitter feed. Social media. It's a sin. No. So going out and buying, according to the left, going out, if you go buy something, if you buy a laptop, it's a sin. It's destroying the planet. So I was reading in the break, and it was talking about the strategic oil reserves. Biden's, releasing 50 million barrels of the strategic oil reserves. It's stuff we've already paid for. We've already paid for it. The genius of the Biden administration. It just is amazing. Now, the fine folks of Great Britain, the geniuses, it's in Gizmodo. It's an interesting scientific article. Marine invertebrates like octopuses, squid, shrimp, crawfish are capable of feeling pain, hunger, joy, excitement. I mean, by that, wouldn't you say your dog? Doesn't your dog feel those things too? Among other expressions of sentience, the UK government will now update its new animal welfare bill accordingly. In May, the UK government introduced its animal welfare sentient bill, in which it recognizes vertebrates as sentient beings. Since the legislation is incomplete, the government commissioned research into the sentience of decapod crustaceans and cephalopods, and in light of these future findings, it would consider further protections. This was a smart decision, as invertebrates are typically viewed as being lower animals in comparison to vertebrates, which isn't really fair. Octopuses, for example, are known for their astonishing problem-solving abilities, like crows. So they will be added for sentience. So eventually, we can get rid of all meat, and we can just become vegan critters. What we could do is, at birth, remove all references to sex on birth certificates. That's the one thing the left wants. We can remove all canines from kids when they come in, when they're permanent, when later, I guess when they're about 12 and canines start coming in, they can remove those, because those have one purpose on the evolutionary chart, which the left worships. You got to remove those. Those are meant to tear meat. They have no other purpose. Canines, by design, are there to rip meat apart. They're really good at doing that. We don't have the same kind of dental structure that cows have, where we don't have 4 stomachs where we chew our cud. We're not kind of emulsifiers of grass and hay, although you can put them, I guess you can do that on your new super soy blender. But you know what? There's certain, and I don't mean to sound primitive, but man, you know what? If you take a rack of ribs and you slow cook those suckers for about, 8 hours or so after you've treat them and set them out, let them age a little bit.
You're really making the liberal
Man,
angry
I tell you,
you're really stirring
or
the
you
pot.
get now that meat is ridiculously expensive. I think this is my doctor's office calling, but I'm not going to take that call. They don't know I'm on the air.
Take it live on the air.
Take it live on the air? Oh, boy. No telling what they'd say. But, but you get about an inch thick ribeye, and you throw that sucker on a grill, and yeah, there's something magical about that. There was when I was a kid. It's always been a thing. A good tuna steak. Oh, these meat. Even North Carolina pork barbecue. I didn't grow up in North Carolina. I spent my summers here. But barbecue, because of where I was down in Columbus County and in Lee County for those weeks of my childhood summers, barbecue was not a big thing. Now, going to Doc Fowler's down in Tabor City and getting a good old cheeseburger at a 10 o'clock or our lunch break and get out of the fields for a few hours. Or not hours, maybe an hour if you were lucky. But man, something about those cheeseburgers were just fantastic.
Hunter Ford just texted in. He said he's drooling right now.
Yeah, I tell you, but those were amazing. So I wasn't introduced to North Carolina pork barbecue. My first memory was when I moved to Wilson. And then you're in the middle of Parker's and Bill's Barbecue and stuff like that. But slow cooked or a beef brisket, you get that slow cooked when they cut and you see the juices just going. It's just like, they cut that knife, goes right through it. Oh, so good. So good, as people would say. But meanwhile, now they're all sentient beings, so I guess I'll be slicing through a head of cabbage and hearing it scream.
No more eating things.
Tomatoes.
Anything with parents you can't eat.
Yes, I know. That must be the case. So, no conch fritters, because it might upset the conch. So, slicing tomatoes and making dressing, I guess, and I just don't see it. I loves me some meat. I loves me some meat. But we appreciate you folks being a part of our broadcast as always here on the Big Talker FM. And we will be back bright and early tomorrow morning. We're supposed to have Pat McCrory. We're supposed to have Dale Falwell. I think there's one or two other folks that I'm leaving off that list, not intentionally so. But we shall return and look forward to entertaining you. Have a great day.
Stay